Good evening, everyone. It is 5:30, and we're going to start our Municipal Council meeting for today, May 2nd. And I'm doing that. And our opening ceremony was scheduled to be by Pastor Ron Flesner. It looks like he's not here. Mayor Daines will be doing this for us. Is he okay?
Thank you, everyone. It's good to be here. I was going to mention this as part of my mayor's staff report, so I'll just move it up to this portion of the program. Again, we hope Pastor Flesner is all right. He may be having some health issues, but he's always been an advocate of a National Day of Prayer, which has been part of our heritage since it was declared by the First Continental Congress in 1775. And again, it's continued every year since then. So the proclamation that I signed basically says, in our state and across America, the observance of the National Day of Prayer will be on Thursday, May 4th, 2023, with the theme, Pray Fervently in Righteousness and Avail Much, based on the verses in James 5:16. The effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. And I will say that I do pray in this role that I have for guidance and pray for miracles and blessings in our city. So I don't very often pray in public, but because we're proclaiming a day of prayer, I will start the meeting by offering a prayer. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be gathered today in our beautiful city. We're grateful for the surroundings that we have and the many good things of life that we enjoy. We are grateful, Father, for the moisture that we've received and would pray for thy mitigating hand as the snow melts, that we may not have severe flooding in our community. We're grateful for those that serve. We're grateful for citizens that care about their community and ask for thy guidance in doing what is right for all. And we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor Daines. Next in our agenda is the acceptance of our minutes for our last meeting and the approval of our agenda for tonight.
So I sent a revision to the minutes, which has been incorporated. It was related to the rezone request we did on 1400 because the minutes did not reflect that the downzone would be part of it. So those have been corrected. So because of that, I would move for acceptance of the minutes in tonight's agenda.
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Move on with our meeting. Just a reminder that our council meetings are the first and the third Tuesdays of the month at 5:30. Our next meeting will be May 16th. Next is the opportunity for anybody in the public who wishes to address the council or the mayor with items that are not on the agenda for tonight. If you'd like to speak or address any of us with items that are not on the agenda, please come up to the mic and state your name, your place of residence.
Hello, my name is Joshua Mahler. I'm from Logan, the Ellis District, and I wanted to start off with a quote from a comedian. He states, "If voting made a difference, they wouldn't let us do it." George Carlin. I'm sure many of you are familiar with his antics.
Don't use the 7 words, please. Don't use the 7 words, please.
I love the guy. I mean, but I wanted to address. I got so many things going on in my head. I just barely found out that I'm ADHD, so I get hyper focused on things. And so, but I wanted to ask. I wanted to talk about. God, I've got 3 things here. I didn't get a chance to go through. I wanted to address the council about the PEFs in this city, the private equity firms that have been slowly integrating into our system. And the sociopathic economics they actually practice. I did some research and found out that back in 1980 we started experiencing this during the Reagan administration, when they untied a lot of corporations' hands, and so they started practicing what's known as sociopathic economics, which led to what is that? Sorry. It's led to a greater rift in the classes. And we're experiencing right now one of the widest rifts between an elite class and, everybody else. And it's really crazy. I think the city council needs to take a step back. And I think a lot of these PEFs really need to be held accountable for their intrusion into our government, into exploiting the people, into exploiting policies. I would really like to see that happen with our body here, our representative body. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jason. Josh, sorry. We need to address. I believe Ron is, Ron, if you can hear us, Ron Flesner.
Did we leave again?
I think he realized he was late.
I'll just acknowledge him if he comes in.
Okay.
My mayor and staff reports.
All right. Anybody else that would like to address the council or the mayor? All right. Next in our agenda, we have mayor and staff reports.
Thank you. And as you know, I just did see Pastor Flesner appear at the door, and I'm glad he's well and that he's here. If you hear me out there, Pastor Flesner, we did do the introduction for you. I talked about the proclamation. He's been an advocate of that for a number of years, so we appreciate his work on that. Item B under my report is a second proclamation. This one is Kids to Park Day, and this proclaims May 20th, 2023 as Kids to Parks Day in the city of Logan. It's, again, a national effort with the National Park Trust, and the goal is to get kids and families outdoors visiting local parks, public lands, and waters, and that's a great cause, and we are happy to support that. So we encourage everyone to do that with their families. The third item on the mayor and staff report is the budget presentation. Just to let you know, we posted the budget to the city website this afternoon, so that is there in its entirety for anyone who wishes to peruse that if you have questions. So we make that very public. And I have a brief budget message about this year's budget, which I will read, and then we can move on. Good evening. For the last several years, it seems there is always something on the economic horizon which provides some uncertainty in the budget process. This year, it's the unprecedented inflation our country is experiencing, and whether efforts by the Federal Reserve to control inflation will bring a recession. I recently attended a talk at USU by Randall Quarles, former vice chairman of the Federal Reserve System. Given the rise in interest rates, he was asked if we can expect a recession. His answer was yes, but his prediction was that it will be short and shallow. That was his quote. I wish we had a crystal ball, but we shall see. At Logan City, our guiding budget philosophy is to budget for revenues conservatively, and we will continue that practice. Conservative revenue projections cause us to examine proposed expenditures carefully. Furthermore, when actual results exceed our conservative projections, those funds in turn are dedicated to the next most critical capital project, which further reduces pressure on future operating budgets. Conservative projections pay dividends in the future, while overly aggressive projections can actually borrow from an uncertain future. I am happy to report the proposed budget continues to project revenues conservatively and to scrutinize spending carefully. We are doing things a little differently this year in terms of the budgeting process. In the general fund, which is shared by many departments, including police, fire, public works, and parks and recreation, as well as all the general government services we provide, we've incorporated a more collaborative approach to the target-based budgeting principles we have used for many years. The goal is to give departments a little more flexibility to address what they see as their most critical budgetary needs. Departments have been asked to examine their budgets even more carefully to look for ways to streamline services and reallocate budgeted amounts so we might better utilize our scarce resources. While we do not have enough funding for all of our needs, let alone our wants, we can still use the resources we have to achieve the best results for our citizens and taxpayers. We expect this budget approach to continue in the general fund for the next several years and hope we can make progress toward our end goal. With the significant growth our city has experienced over the past few years, one of the biggest needs is for new employees in several departments. This new budgeting process has allowed departments to trim other spending in order to add a new employee or to begin to set aside money to allow for a new employee in future years. Based on those needs, additional positions in the general fund include the following: 1 police officer, a public works inspector supervisor, in the Parks and Rec department, a recreation ground maintenance worker. And as an FYI, we will also be creating a new category in Parks and Rec under the Recreation Department to track activities in the new Center Block Plaza once it opens this summer. And then additional positions outside the general fund include a 911 dispatcher. Again, I think you all are aware of the growth we're experiencing and the additional road miles we've added, the additional trail miles, the additional services we're providing. But our employees are a critical asset for the city, and we want to reward and retain them. Although amounts may vary based on market need and economic conditions, we have generally budgeted 4% for pay for performance, with additional funding for administrative and market adjustments in certain departments and divisions. One budgetary item with a huge impact on our general budget and on raises is the cost of health care. The increase in our insurance costs for this coming fiscal year is 15% compared to 7% and 5% in the 2 previous years. Healthcare premiums for employees are paid entirely by the city, so that is a significant benefit for employees, which saves them out-of-pocket premiums. Other items of note in the budget include a significant impact to the electric fund because of a dramatic increase in the cost of purchased power. The city has applied a surcharge to all electric bills since last July. We currently have a rate study underway which will propose appropriate electric rate increases. Until that time, we are relying on the surcharge for the difference between the budget price for purchased power and the prices we are actually paying. In addition, we anticipate the budget for the Environmental Health Fund will be adjusted during fiscal year 24 as we discontinue some services outside the boundaries of the city of Logan. As those services are taken over by the other cities or their contractor and we downsize our operations, the environmental health expense budget will be adjusted accordingly. In summary, my number one goal as mayor is wise fiscal management. We are accomplishing a wide variety of capital projects and investment in infrastructure, but we do so in a fiscally responsible way. We will continue to budget conservatively in case we have unexpected impacts to our local economy. As mayor, along with my outstanding team, we pledge to do our very best to provide excellent services and quality of life for our citizens as we use our resources wisely and meet the challenges ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Daines. Next in our agenda, we have our council business, and first up, we have an update from the Planning Commission by Jeannie.
Yeah, the planning commission met last Thursday, and they discussed a new daycare, which will be on 1624 East, 1140 North, up in Hillcrest. And they also had a presentation from CMPO regarding roads and road future. And that was coupled with a conversation about the new Logan City Transportation Master Plan, which will come to us. They had some questions and some concerns, but I think overall they were resolved, and that will come to us in the near future for our opportunity to review it.
Thank you, Jeannie. As part of this budget process, we'd like to inform everyone that we will have 2 budget workshops, one on May 9th and one on May 23rd at 5:30, both of them.
So we have like 4 meetings this month.
Do we know what departments are presenting on what nights yet for those?
Yes, we do. I think right, we can send it.
Okay.
She'll email it. So we have scheduled, so each department will have about 10 minutes to 15 minutes, depending on the size of the department, to go over, just some general things for the background for city council members, and you have a chance to ask any questions. So it's just an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the specifics, and we certainly welcome the public to attend those budget hearings as well.
I'd just like to know which of the 150 pages I need to read before next Tuesday.
And you will do it, we know.
That guide that I sent out today, that is the order in which they will appear.
Oh, okay. All right.
It should be anyway.
I don't know. All right, I'll trust you.
Rich.
We're ready for action items?
Oh, yeah, please.
First up for action items for tonight is Resolution 23-11, presented by our Environmental Director, Isa. Would you like to review this resolution, please?
I guess this is related to the presentation I gave you 2 weeks ago, and we would like to receive your approval so we can finalize this report and send it to the state. Unless you have a question that you want me to answer.
Right. I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions either.
No,
Yeah.
You did such a wonderful job the last time.
Yeah, and you were not here, I believe.
I was not.
I'm more than happy to go over with you.
But I did look at the
Yeah.
documents.
It's pretty impressive that we keep doing an amazing job with our sewage treatment.
Thank you.
I suppose a
Credit to
question, I may have asked it, but I forgot it already, is with the flooding considerations, are you concerned with excess discharge at the solid waste or?
You mean to the sewer treatment? We have not seen, it's surprising. 2017, we've received significant flow, a lot higher than we anticipated. This year, we've not seen that yet.
Yet being
Yes.
the word.
Yes.
But you have the addition, there's now the sewage treatment plant.
Yes.
And the ponds.
Yes.
As overflow. So
And we're in a better position to handle if we see a similar flow like 2017. We've seen a peak that went up to 22 million gallons a day. Right now, as of today, went down to 14 million gallons a day. So it's a good thing.
Yep, and our capacity is?
We can handle up to 30 million a day.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Do we need to vote on this?
I move we approve Resolution 23-11.
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
How many times is
Resolution
that?
2311 passes.
I was just at a conference in Denver, and the mayor of Phoenix was talking about their water treatment facility, and they treat up to 50 million a day in Phoenix, and they want to reuse it. They're having some kickback from the citizens that don't think it's clean coming back.
Oh,
Thought
Use
that
it for kind of gray water use, gray water use.
I better not go to Vegas,
they're cleaning it and repurposing it, so.
because
yeah.
in Vegas, the water is used a minimum of 3 times.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. So I was thinking, Logan's not nearly as big as Phoenix, and we're doing, we can do up to 30.
But remember, we
Their
serve-
capacity's 50
But we serve 6 other cities
cities,
besides
yeah,
Logan.
yeah,
too.
but Phoenix is considerably larger than Cache Valley, I think. So,
But they
very
don't have
interesting.
flooding events, so they don't have to worry.
Rarely.
They can do
Yeah, they
50
do, they
and
do.
50 and 50 every day.
I thought it was really interesting. Sorry.
next on our agenda, we have Resolution 23-14, consideration for amending fire prevention inspection fees. Chief Brett, would you like to review this, please?
As we talked about last 2 weeks ago, this one thing I just want to reiterate as far as what we talked about last time. I was talking to Jeannie on the side earlier because her comment was there's a lot of fees here. The reality is there's actually 10 separate fees. A lot of those are broken down for you so that you know exactly why we proposed that fee and how we got there. But there's really just 10 different types of fees, and then the most important being really the extra assignments, as we've had recently a couple of issues where we've been out multiple times to help them get up to speed. So sometimes their emergency becomes our emergency with no way to be compensated for such. So yeah, if there's no other questions, sorry, I'll leave it at that.
Thorough last time.
Any questions for Chief Hannick?
I'll make a comment that this is extremely important. I've written a training manual on commercial building construction and inspections and so forth. And if all cities would adopt this stringent inspection program, it would reduce a lot of the problems that we see in other communities.
So we already have the program, correct? I mean, we already have, right, Brad? We already have the program.
It's just the fees.
We're just adding a way to, a method whereby our time and effort is compensated.
Yes. So we already do everything that's required, and we're performing all the inspections necessary for new buildings, new construction, current businesses. And like I said, the difference between us and the building department, they may do their inspection fee on a new business. We continually do those annually, or at least make every effort to do such, perpetually. So those things are all in place. Right now, what we're trying to do is institute some method of compensation for some of those duties that require extra, more time consuming, events that we have to do, and then also have a way to capture those that are unpredictable. For example, a business has multiple inspections where normally they would have 3 inspections. They could have 10, 20, 30 for whatever reason, because they're either not ready or it's a time essence. So their emergencies sometimes become ours. So we're trying to find a way to balance that workload, so that fee structure will help us, potentially one day be able to add another inspector to be able to manage the workload itself and or reduce the workload through a fee structure.
So this is a little more broad than just this particular fee structure. So when business A wants to come to Logan, whatever it is, they will, and they go through the planning process and they have an approved plan. So there are fees that are attached to that construction from community development,
Correct.
and those are building permit fees,
Right.
correct? Then there are fees attached to that development for this,
Correct.
and then if they close a road, then there are fees attached to it from Public Works. So, do we have fees that come from electrical and all that too? I don't know.
Connection fees,
Connection fees.
water, sewer, light and
So-
power.
So, on the whole, if you're building a $1 million building or whatever, how much would your total fees be?
Rich.
Depends.
Yeah, it just
It
depends.
depends.
I mean,
Depends.
Okay,
but again, they do have a formula for calculating them, so,
well, I know we're restricted, we can't just randomly, set fees and
Right.
go to town.
and the legislature does make you accountable for those fees,
Right.
so you really should just be covering your cost.
Right.
I mean, it's not a profit center.
And
It's-
so this is fundamentally covering a cost that was prior to this point, just done out of the general fund budget.
Right, it was being absorbed by, general fund.
But it's a true cost to the community to get, it's a true cost of constructing something.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we open it up for public comment?
1%. 0.1%.
This is a public hearing. If you would like to comment on this specific item on the agenda, please come up to the mic and state your name and your place of residence. All right, we'll bring it back to the council.
I would move acceptance of resolution 23-14.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Resolution 23-14 passes. Next on our agenda, we have ordinance 23-16. It's a rezone, and I will ask Ross to please come and review this for us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a really quick refresher and one new item. So this is a project that was proposed by Ben Steele on behalf of Visionary Homes. And it's located on 6 South between 1400 West and 1100 West. Sugar Creek is the name of the project. The request is for a rezone from NR4 to MR9, and it's about 35 acres, kind of a rectangular shape here. Pretty much all vacant. There is some wetland areas on the west portion of the property. The future land use plan calls the area as DR, and DR stands for detached residential or single family detached residential. The Woodruff neighborhood plan, this was done just a couple years ago, indicates that the area remain single family, and it's indicated here by this blue dash. There were 3 areas that they did want to change the FLUP, a couple of commercial areas down by the highway, and then some updates kind of south or west of this site. The current zoning is NR4. The neighborhood is a mix of NR6 and NR4 in this area, and then to the northwest you have some public and commercial service zoning. The proposal is to go to MR9. This is the site here, and this is the proposed plan. The plan consists of 208 total dwelling units, 126 townhomes, and 82 single-family homes. The single-family homes are represented by two different sizes. The kind of tan color here is about 4,800 square foot lot. The more yellow is a 6,000 square foot lot. And then the brown squares in the middle area, as well as this kind of finger over here on the northwest, represent the townhome footprints. The total breakdown, again, the density for this is 5.9 units per acre. They have clustered the units towards the center and the east portion of the lot. And you can see the western area is delineated wetland. But in addition to the wetlands, they've added some open space and some trails that kind of meander through the project. Again, the total unit count is 208 with 126 townhomes and 82 single-family homes. The project was reviewed by the Planning Commission, and they deferred the design review and subdivision until May 11th, until a vote for the rezone was conducted. But they will look at the layout and the lot sizes on May 11th. The city went through the connectivity and block creation, and if you look at the connectivity in the center area, it meets our grid pattern requirements as well as the number of connections. Over in this area, you can't really connect, and so they've done a good job there. And then up here to go around the wetlands, they've made adjustments to this street, 500 South, and then that better spaces the intersections here on 1400 West Street, as that is slated in the master transportation plan to be a higher category road. And then the three roads here represent kind of a standard block spacing, as well as line up with some of the existing roads to the south. The Planning Commission the Planning Commission recommended denial of the rezone, and they voted 5-1. Approximately 1 week ago, the legal department received a deed restriction from the applicant that basically limited the property or the development to what you see here. There was one issue that the legal department had. It was one section just was too general. It just said 208 units, and they felt that it needed to have that ratio, the breakdown of 126 townhomes, 82. Both parties talked about that, and they can come to resolution. There was no issues with adding some detail to that particular section.
Sorry, question about that, what you just mentioned. It binds the owners of that property to that number of units in the totality of the parcels, or how is it applied to each of the parcels in the property?
So the deed restriction will apply to parcels that are named in the deed restriction. That covers the entire area that's listed up there. And deed restrictions are recorded, so they'll run with the property. So if the property changes hands,
So if they
these
sell
deed
it.
restrictions will still apply.
Okay.
So is this more than one property?
It's currently 4 parcels.
So there's a restriction on each parcel?
Correct.
And does the restriction specify what goes on that parcel, or does it just copy the other 3?
So the deed restriction gives, it says that there'll be no more than an average of 6 per acre for the entire property for all the parcels. And so it'll apply to all of them. And then the change that we are making is to say that a maximum of 126 single-family attached dwelling units may be built on the property as applied to all of those parcels.
A maximum 126 multifamily or single family?
Single-family attached dwelling units.
Single, so the townhouses.
Yes, the townhouse.
So in theory, could they build more townhomes in one of the parcels than we're currently seeing,
Yeah.
but still stay with,
Still have to stay within those parameters
of the units?
of the units for that entire project.
So they can build more than 126?
No, total of 126 for all parcels. But when you say more than, what do you mean, Ernesto?
No, what I meant is, for example, right there, it seems to me that the townhomes are spread out through all of the parcels.
That they could cluster them into one parcel.
Exactly, so that's my question.
Yeah, they just cannot have more than 126.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
So they don't have to stay with this design?
No, we're not approving design tonight. The parameters of the total density and how that density will look as far as multifamily and single-family detached.
Thank you.
And then just my last comment was, this is their phasing plan. So they show phase 1 in the center area there with 26 lots, 44 townhomes, and then phase 2 to the east, and then phase 3 to the west. Any questions for me?
I have two questions. I understand there's road improvements that are required by the developer. What is the timing of the road improvements, considered the phasing is somewhat not linear? How does that work?
So they will correspond with phases. So you'll see road improvements inside of this boundary for phase 1. And then you'll see road improvements here. Now, the only caveat to that is emergency vehicle access has to be maintained. And so as they begin construction here, they'll have to do it in a way that, fire and emergency vehicles can get to every occupied home.
All right, so the main point was 600 South or the Menden Road, that will be improved. We'll call it B, not A, B, not in sequence. The middle section will be improved from 62 up to 102 feet.
So the plan is to go to a collector, which is 80 feet, with the possibility of going to 102 in the future.
Okay.
But right now, it's essentially a 60 or a 2-lane,
Right.
and that will maintain. This will not affect that current functionality, but in this area, it will be widened to an 80.
All right, so that'll be completed as an improved road, phase 1.
Yeah, and then once all 3 phases are complete, then you would have an 80-foot cross-section for the entirety of the project frontage, which is approximately 3 blocks long.
How about 1400 West?
So that would be improved with phase 3, and they would approve their proportionate portion,
Their side of the road.
Yeah, basically their side of the road.
Why do they not have to only do their side of the road on 600 South?
They are doing just the north side of the road.
So it
for
won't be
600
80,
South.
right?
Well, there's approximately 60 built right now.
Right.
So they're essentially adding the 20 on the north side of the road.
They should only have to add 10 if they're only doing half. But because there's no chance to do the other side, is that why that's working out that way?
Part of that comes into the traffic that they generate, and Darren or Paul can address that a little bit more.
Okay.
But it gets down to their proportionate impact.
Oh, okay, okay,
That makes sense.
that makes sense. So, that's fine.
Okay.
I just was,
Yeah, I have another question. There's wetlands shown on the plan. Okay, that's figurative, I'm assuming. What is the condition of the wetlands? Is it intermittent? Is it cover exactly what they're showing on their plan? Or is this, for example, is half the year going to be dry that they kids could run and play in there, or is it always a bog?
I mean, so at this point, it's a little bit conceptual. They're showing some trails and boardwalks around that area. I think as they develop that open space and understand the boundaries a little bit, but it won't be used in an active sense. It'll be passive. You'll walk around the edge
Yes.
and look at the wildlife and whatnot. But back here, as you move farther east, this area, there may be some ball fields or some other amenities back in here that are outside that wetland. So you can see the boundaries in this area here, and their open space goes beyond those.
So what's the total open space
Yeah, I was
in
going
that
to
area
ask,
then,
what's the square footage of that?
in the proposed plan?
So we're still going through the design review process. It's 30%. I don't have that exact square footage right now,
But it's 30%.
but that's the requirement in the MR9 zone.
9 acres, 10 acres approximately.
Yeah. And that's project-wide.
That's project-wide. So that's not all in one spot.
Right.
So
That piece is-
During the planning commission discussion of this rezone, was the deed restriction brought up? Was it discussed?
It was brought up, it was not discussed at length or detailed. It was brought up by the applicant as a possible, option in the future, but at that point, I don't even think it had been drafted.
So Russ, do you have a picture that shows the 4 parcels?
Yes. They're kind of hard to see, but at these gray lines, so that's parcel 1, 2, 3, 4.
There's actually 5, Russ. Sorry to speak out of turn. There's actually 5 parcels there. There's one a little bit to the north on the east side there as well.
Okay. Right there.
They're all listed in the deed restriction.
So doesn't the parcel that is closest to 6 South, the furthest east, have some restrictions on it from UDOT? And I thought there were some restrictions on that parcel already, that it was not allowed, you couldn't build on it or something.
On this parcel here,
Yeah.
I'm unaware of any UDOT restriction on that parcel.
Oh, wait.
This is essentially the frontage road that UDOT built in conjunction
I
with the
must have
10th
heard
West
that.
project.
I must have heard that from the developer, because that's the only place I would have heard that.
The plan shows
2 acres
lots
open space.
in this area. And then one last comment on parking. I know that was brought up previously. So all of these roads in here are city standard roads where you've got 2 travel lanes and 2 parking lanes in parallel positions. The townhomes in this area are accessed via an alley. And so it's kind of a rear alley, and then you go into a 2-car garage. They all have 2-car garages. But these alleys on the interior do not have room for parking because you have to keep that 20 feet clear for fire truck or emergency. So there could be parking out on the perimeter streets, but not on these alleys.
And there's not been any designation of guest parking yet on this plat, on the plan?
Not at this,
Where that would have to be?
not at this
Okay.
point, no. The code requires 2 parking stalls per unit,
2 total.
2 total per unit.
Does that include the visitor parking?
It does not. We do not have visitor parking in this zone. We do in some of our other higher density zones, but not in this zone.
In the MR9?
Correct.
So what benefits are given to the project because it is zoned MR9, even though the density is 5.9?
That's a good question.
Well, clustering provides open space benefits. It provides natural resource preservation. If you just took this property and you mitigated the wetlands off-site, and then you spread out lots throughout the entirety, you wouldn't have that open space, or you wouldn't have that wetland preserved. The open space allows for, maybe community amenities, trails and things like that. There's some benefits to clustering when you have sensitive lands. On the flip side, you won't have as big a backyard. So, if this remained NR4, you'd have 10,000 square feet. Every single property would have a bigger backyard to kind of do their own open space thing. Is that what you were trying to, what did you mean by benefit?
So I know the clustering, I know that asking for MR9 allowed for smaller footprint, single-family houses.
Right, 4,000 minimum lot.
Versus 6.
But the townhouses, the 30% open space is a requirement of MR9, but it would not be a requirement if it were NR6, for example.
Correct.
And the preservation of the wetland is, it looks like perhaps in addition to that 30%, I don't know for sure, but I don't know what 30% looks like in terms, because it's all, it's like every green spot is part of that 30%.
So wetlands can be counted as open space. You can just preserve native area and count that as open space. You can develop open space into like a playground or a park or tennis court, basketball court. So open space can take a bunch of different figures, but wetlands do count as open space. And I believe it's their intent to utilize that space for
But
acreage.
the green space around each one of those units counts as open space too, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Walkway.
And the walkway, the walkway does not, right? Or does it?
Trails and walkways do count.
Okay.
What does not count is driveway, parking lot, things like that.
I believe this was NR6 at some point.
Correct. So this entire area was NR6, and then about 6 years ago, the city downzoned a couple of areas, Hillcrest, Cliffside, and this area to NR4. But prior it was NR6.
You've got NR6 all around.
What was the decision-making process for that? Was there input from the neighborhood or?
So the city council basically directed community development to research some areas, do some inventories on current lot sizes to see areas that could be eligible for NR4. And so we looked at Hillcrest, Cliffside, and this area. To the north is Equestrian Estates, which is 1 acre lot size, so that's 40,000 square feet. And this area, in conjunction with those existing lot sizes in the vacant area, met that criteria for that down zone. Basically, the city council was, there was 0 NR4 zoning acreage in our city before that exercise, and they were looking to create some larger lot opportunities.
Because we believe that a variety is a good idea. A variety of lot opportunities. I will say. And then we get the legislature wants us to densify and create more affordability, and so we end up with the crosshairs.
Any other questions or comments before we open it up?
At the moment.
This is a public hearing. If you would like to comment on this specific item on our agenda, please come up to the mic and state your name and your place of residence. We will ask you to please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, and we'll probably need somebody to keep time.
And is the sign-up sheet out by the door?
Please make sure that you sign in with the sign-in sheet at the door.
Do you want a 2-minute warning, or do you want to just do straight 3 minutes?
Just do straight 3 minutes. Now is your opportunity to comment on this specific item.
Thank you. Can you hear me, or is this close enough? Okay. So my name is Debbie Davis, and we just live on about 3 houses down there from Legend Drive that attaches to 6 West or South. And I have this boy with autism that I feel will be affected in a negative way if there's more development, because with more development comes the obstruction of cell phone towers and solar panels and anything wireless that can cause him to stay awake for weeks at a time, which is very hard on my health and his health. And we just moved there a couple of years ago because it's the only place we found that can accommodate his needs and help him to not have seizures and not stay awake and not drive me crazy. And so we just don't know where else to move. We could try and look for a place, but there's really no place available where there's not a lot of cell phone towers and things that do affect him. And so we would just propose thinking about making that area kind of a quiet zone where there's no further development of those types of structures that would come along with it. The furthest cell phone tower away from him is probably around 6 blocks. So I know for sure he can thrive pretty well if those things are far enough away from him. But we really don't want to be moved. We don't want to be driven out of our home. And if we can have development without that type of development that comes with it and have some restrictions on it, making it a quiet zone, then we could probably still stay there and thrive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
My name is Josh Mullen. I'm from Logan, Ellis. One thing I've noticed with our rezoning to the higher zones is they come with less homeowner occupancy. The denser that we have rezoned, the less equity people, more apartments, more duplexes, more of that. And so we're literally, with that, but we're making it so people can't, start investing into their future. I haven't seen a developer that actually cares for any of the wetlands that exist in Logan. Outside of Logan, all they care about is putting people as quick as they possibly can into as small units. I've worked construction for almost 30 years now, and I've done some serious projects, and I look at this and all I see is money, 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 money. I know that Logan needs development. It does, but it needs responsible development. Not just upzoning, so that we can pack more people and make a bigger tax base. But people need comfortable lives, and this kind of development doesn't do that, and it does nothing for wetlands. Wetlands should be protected. They are a natural resource that we literally need in our environment to exist. And to say that wetlands are this park space that, we can throw some playgrounds or bridges and things. Wetlands need to be left alone. I mean, they do. They provide a serious necessity for human life. And this kind of development, it's not about anything else but profiteering. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
My name's Kathleen Olson, and I sent all of you guys an email. I don't know if you read it or not. But my concerns are, one, I don't mind development, but I don't want that many in my backyard. And the frontage road right there, by the time we get all these people coming out of there, we're not going to be able to get out of that street going on to 6 South. Because there's only 4, do you see the frontage road off of 10?
Yes.
In that corner. Okay, the frontage road called Oakwood Drive.
Okay.
There's 4 spots. It's only, well, it's kind of 3 lanes because they do have a turning lane there. But there's 4 spots before the light. So we'll never be able to get out of there because certain times of day, you can't get onto that road anyway. I mean, I leave early enough in the morning. I don't care. Nobody bothers me. I just drive. But other times of the day, you can't get out of there. That is one concern that will need to be addressed, or you're going to have a lot of accidents right there. 2, there is some wetlands or flowing wells. Is that my time already?
No, I forgot to reset. You have another minute and a half.
Okay.
I got distracted.
I just thought I was talking.
It's Amy's wake-up call.
Yeah.
Anyway, there is some more wetlands right behind those 2 houses on it would be the northeast corner, which I will get with him and talk to him about, because I brought that up at every meeting. So see the yellow houses?
Yeah.
So see the north corner?
Right.
Of those yellow houses, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 lots right there on the east.
So on the
There's
lower parts, the lower part of the,
You did that.
sorry.
Can't run, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Right, those.
Those-
Right there.
those-
Oh, okay.
Okay, so there's some flowing wells right there that they've capped and piped into some different directions. And I have talked to him, and he did say he'd address it, because I brought that up at every meeting. And I know they're there because I've lived there for over 40 years. And you walk out back there and you sink. So he said he would address that, so that is another concern, because there is wetlands at this end of the property, not just this end of the property.
Okay.
Good to know.
That's
Thank you.
Thank
my
you,
concerns. Thank you.
Kathleen. Thank you.
It's like church. Well, sit here and wait for you to go.
I'm Roger Gessel. I live on 5th South. So I'm close by there. I'm just concerned that the developer bought the property knowing what was zoned, knowing what was there, knowing, and I've sent you all each a letter too, if you've seen it. But they knew what they were buying. They calculated the costs for an NR4 zone. They knew all that. We're fine with putting homes in there. We've known, like, I've been there over 40 years. We know that there's going to be homes there eventually. We just feel like it's too many, too much. And I talked to Tom a minute, and it's like, okay, I'm old style. I feel like kids need a place to play that's their own place. These little teeny lots, these 4,800, you can't hardly squeeze a house on there. So they're gonna have, 10 feet on one side. I don't know the side boundaries. Maybe they can put them 3 feet from the boundary or something. I don't know that. That's something we maybe need to know, but there's no green space to speak of around these. There'll be a little space between each house. I don't think we should let them do it. They knew what they were getting into. They can make money. They'll make a lot of money on this, even though, they wouldn't have bought it if they couldn't make money the way it was. So I'd say just make them do it the way it was and save our neighborhood. And also the state has even mentioned that kids need a place. They even talk about having bigger home sites along with all the apartments and everything, because they need a place to be their own. They need to learn how to mow the grass. They need to learn how to take responsibility for their own place. I just feel like it's important if it's working out in the other subdivisions around here. Just save our quality of life here and tell them just do what they signed up for originally. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
Aaron Doolin, I live at 80 Thomas Court, so just take a little bit of note of this. Just a couple things. First one, we talk about affordability for homes, and quite frankly, Utah sucks. Housing costs have gone really high.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, no, I say Utah. I didn't say where, I say Utah.
Everywhere.
So my wife, I'm moving it down because there's nothing there. But when you look at affordability, part of the MIH plan is to be 30% of total housing cost. That includes any HOAs, any insurances, any taxes, any utilities to be affordable in our plan. Well, doing rough numbers, we were told last night that town would start at $375. To do the math, pre-tax, we need $124,000 in income to afford that according to our plan. If you look at the plan, we also see that about $43,000 is the per capita income per resident here in Logan. So we need polygamy back, so you're gonna have three people in families to work to get to that 124. So I was going to see this as being an affordable option. Secondly, this area is one of the only areas in Logan on the west side that houses youth that are in that more so middle school to high school range. And when you put in smaller homes, you get smaller families who then look to move to bigger areas so they can grow with their family because their kids outgrew the house. Believe me, I know what it means to grow a house. I did it to my parents a few times. But, so then, what does that do to Logan Heights? Does that continue to decrease its ability to grow? And then lastly, that intersection, any development, I don't care if it's SR1, I don't care if it's SI 9000 or MR for that space, that intersection is one of the most deadly intersections. That entire neighborhood has reached out to UDOT to got zero anywhere with them. They've put up a handful of lights, they've done some studies, but I truly believe until a kid dies on that crosswalk, we won't see change. And any additional homes there, even its current status, not addressing that intersection with a school right across the street and with all those children walking across the street, those two security guards, or not security, but crosswalk guards that work that corner, I hope you're paying them $100,000+ a year because those two ladies, they literally dominate that corner and keep those kids safe. And so you can't rely on them all the time. But hope that we can work with Visionary to work together. I know they're part of achieving some of our goals in the MIH plan with the housing program. Can't remember exactly. Don't know why they were listed specifically and not anyone else. But would hope that we can work together to build out that space. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is
Caleb Gunderson. I also live right in the Woodruff community along 600 South. I would like to second the notion to those ladies that operate that cross guard. They are truly amazing and need a shout out. I just have 3 quick points I'd like to make. One is, I feel that the communities that I live in, with the NR4 zoning, approximately that, it provides for a much more stable community, more families that stay longer in those homes, and ultimately only strengthens the Woodruff School District. Having this setup where there are so many townhomes, of course, many of them turn into rentals, and the transient nature and the instability of those only hurts the school districts. And I would say that the most valuable and most influential input to any school are the students, and specifically the homes and community that they're coming from. Another, these points are connected. I was here, I attended the open hearing with the Planning Commission, and the overwhelming majority of the people that spoke in that meeting were in favor for keeping this at the NR4. There is the Woodruff Area Plan, also the other plan I would believe referenced to Fleur. I would say that the voice of the Woodruff community is to keep that as the NR4 zone because of the many benefits they have seen in living in that area themselves and the way it's currently set up. Visionary homes, it'll be great to develop this, but as was mentioned, it's certainly a financial incentive, and I think that lens should be used in analyzing the reasons that they want to move to this route. I'm thankful for the City Council, and the other thing I wanted to say is, despite the pressures that you certainly have from other sources, be it the state, be it federal legislation, as was mentioned, to move to lower density, I would ask that the voice of the Woodruff community be heard, and ask you to represent us in making these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb.
My name is Ross Draper. I live at 5th South, just east of this development. Points have already been made, but I'm just going to reiterate it. And mostly there's parking in between those townhouses. There are 92 units there. And you mentioned that there shouldn't be any parking in the alleyways. I just have this feeling that if there's 92 units there, there are going to be a few cars in that alleyway, which will impede any service vehicle that needs to get in there. I don't know how they're going to regulate that nobody parks in those alleyways. They're not connected, so you can come in from the south or the north, and you can't get to the other side of it. So I just think there's some issues there with parking that will not be upheld. I mean, you can patrol it all you want to, but there's still going to be somebody in the alleyway at some point. I mean, that's just how it works, etc. Even though it might be illegal, it's going to happen. So the parking is an issue there. I think the other issue is stability. The junior high, the high school are losing students because people live in these small, tiny units, and then they move because they need something bigger. They move to Nibley, Smithfield, wherever they can find a bigger unit. And so we're really being detrimental to the junior high and the high schools here. And the elementaries will balloon with that many more houses. Woodruff is not going to be able to accommodate that many more there. There's already a subdivision I know that's planned west of here that's going to add some to that. But this will it's just too many in that small area. Although it's a nice plan, it looks good on paper. The wetlands are in there, and they account for some of that 5.9 per acre. Take out the wetlands, and lots really shrink. They're not 5.9 anymore, they're near 5, et cetera, if you take all that wetland spaces there. So I think there are a couple reasons to not do that. The developer will put in a sidewalk for the kids. That needs to be in place before they start renting or selling those homes. Because if you have kids running across 6 South, get to the sidewalk that does exist, to go to school, there's going to be a problem. So that needs to be coordinated with this, and also the one that's west of here. That's all right. I think it's already been approved. So we've got some coming. We don't need this much in that small space. That's my feeling. Thanks for listening. Thanks for you that came last night and heard many other comments.
Thank you, Ross.
My name is Stacy Bingham. I also live in that neighborhood where this is being squished in. And I just wanted to bring up one more thing, that this is a really great community where people serve all the time. You brought up the budget for city employees. And last year when there weren't city employees to weed that city land on the frontage road, the community got together and used their own time and resources to weed those. That's a lot of land there, actually. It doesn't look like it, but, and they do stuff like that all the time. You know, they serve in Loaves and Fishes community meals. They serve, they just serve each other really well, and it's because they have stake, they own land, and they're invested in this community. And so we would love to see that promoted in this neighborhood so that we can be, as Logan City, the heart of Cache Valley rather than the armpit.
Thank you, Stacy.
Could you repeat your name, please?
Stacy Bingham.
Stacy Bingham. Thanks, Stacy Bingham.
Yes.
I'm Jason Schofield, no relation to Frank Schofield. One thing that I found interesting from our meeting with Visionary last night, oh, by the way, I live in Amber Fields, which is actually a Visionary development, a little bit north of here. One thing that I thought was interesting from our meeting with them is they mentioned that they felt like this was the middle ground, which I thought was interesting. I'm not really sure what their side of things would be if this wasn't the middle ground, if they want to do what they want to do. But one of the things I found interesting is they mentioned that the townhomes started at 375,000, and we asked about the 4,800 square foot lots, and they said those homes would start at about 420, which is not a very big difference. And I don't know all the facts and statistics, but I would imagine that if you can afford 375,000, you can probably afford 420, which would make those houses almost just as affordable as those townhouses. So I know we're trying to get more affordable housing in the city, but if we changed all those townhouses to those smaller homes, you wouldn't need the MR9. And you would still have a whole bunch of affordable housing there. Now, I would imagine that one of the reasons that Visionary is wanting to do this is because they bought the land for a certain amount and they want to maximize their profits. It makes sense, they're a business. However, our neighborhood shouldn't have to suffer because they want to maximize their profits. Maybe going to all houses instead of townhouses, maybe they would take the loss, but that, again, that's not the neighborhood's fault. We're not the ones that bought the land, knowing what it was, and so I think it's a little bit unfair for them to come in and say, well, we have to do this because otherwise we're not going to make as much profit. And we have the plan in place for it to be NR4, as was mentioned. They knew when they bought the land it was NR4. So I would say, let them build NR4, or, at the very maximum do, is it NR6? I think? And if they did houses there, they could do NR6 instead of MR9. So I just feel like they say that's the middle ground, but I feel like that's not really the middle ground. That's them trying to maximize their profits. And I understand that, but I feel like in the interest of the community, we should not let them do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jason.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm Sean Milne. I own a residence at 1234 West 290 South. And a little less than 2 years ago, I had the privilege, and I appreciated the gal that spoke just a couple of speakers ago, mentioning what a blessed community we're in. And I thank you and your predecessors for the opportunity for change. Because before Visionary bought our product, built the product that's only about 3 years old, before we lived there, we wouldn't have had a voice as a homeowner. It's probably zoned something else a long time ago, and it changed. And your predecessors allowed a change that gave me and my wife and many of the neighbors an opportunity for homeownership, an opportunity for affordability that admittedly has probably inflated the prices compared to my parents' generation or grandparents' generation, but nonetheless affordable by comparison. So this product would likely be the same. Now I come to you tonight with two roles, two different perspectives. One, you guys likely know from Bear River Association of Governments, and I've represented Cache County as the Economic Development Director for quite some time for the last couple of years, and now serve for a couple of counties in the same kind of function. And you likely know, with Kirk Jensen behind me and your own staff being able to validate these needs, many of your employers talk about the need for affordable housing for the workforce. And affordable means a lot of different things to different people, and it might conjure quite a broad spectrum of what that means, but you've got one major employer that is just about 6 or 7 years in this community, creating the kind of jobs that we raise our kids and grandkids to want, good, white-collar kind of jobs. They need 3,100 new positions in the next 8 years. And they've told myself, the county executive, and other leaders in the community, you know, we've kept up with wage inflation because these are not your typical entry-level service-oriented jobs. You don't have the housing. Just flat out don't have the housing for the kind of growth. Likewise, President Cockett said the same thing about professors that she has recruited to accept positions only that a week or two after accepting, saying that with good, livable wage kind of jobs, they can't find housing. Some of those folks are empty nesters. They don't need a single family detached. They don't need a backyard. And now I'm going to change gears because you already know those kind of presentations I've given, but I invite anybody that might have a question about that professional orientation to talk to me afterwards if they'd like. But now I'm going to shift it to be a little bit more personal. I grew up to a single mom. Most parents would not want their daughter to get divorced or to have to raise kids on their own. But in this particular market, it's been stated that this may or may not be deemed affordable, but I was raised in apartments, townhomes and attached product, rented homes, and it wasn't until I was in high school that my single mom could afford a home, a single family detached. I know that my neighbors probably don't mean this when they say certain words, and it's nuanced, but I'm one of those people as a kid. And I think I turned out all right. First one in my family to have a master's degree. I've owned a business for 25 years before I got into public service. I think our neighbors turn out like how we treat them. And I'll bet, just assumption here, that there are folks with some agricultural lots, which my 1234 West abuts, and a great little mare that's in the backyard on the other side of the irrigation ditch. Probably worried about what me and my neighbors in Visionary product would be when that was announced. And I would like to believe that me and my neighbors have been great neighbors. And I also have faith that whoever moves into this product, whether it's single-family detached or townhomes, will be good neighbors and likely be a direct reflection of how we as neighbors treat them. I'll also, well, I guess I'm done. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Evil taskmasters.
Ernesto told me to do it.
I know.
Anyone else that would like to comment on this?
I don't know if I have an opportunity later, so maybe I take it now. If the clock has started.
I'll start with
I just,
Do you want to identify who you are?
Yes, of course. Ben Steele with Visionary Homes. I reside in Whitney, Idaho. Just a couple of things to clarify. Going back to the deed restriction, I believe we also have a clause in the deed restriction that speaks to following the general layout that we have presented in the preliminary plat. So I think that would give a little more comfort zone in worrying about, are they going to come in and change and put everything on one parcel or the other? That's not our intention, and we've submitted the preliminary plat together to give some security in that way. The question was asked about the middle of the road, and is this the middle of the road? And I guess from a developer standpoint, looking at the infrastructure that exists here with 102-foot right-of-ways on all sides, on 10th and 6th and on 14th as a planned road, and 18-inch sewers and large water infrastructure surrounding, I guess that's where that sentiment was coming from, is this area could support a lot more density than what we were proposing as far as what's existing there for the city. But that's not what we're proposing. We're proposing something that I think is the middle of the road. After weighing everything in the balance, we feel like this is the plan that tries to appease all the parties. The parties that are existing, surrounding the neighborhoods, those that will be living and working within this facility here, in this project, and also Visionary Homes as a landowner and the rights that they have there. One of the questions that came up regarding safety, and I just throw this out there as a concession, when you look at the phasing, we were going to complete 6 South with phase 1, which is in the center of the project. It dawns on me that would leave a gap between 10th West and 12th as incomplete. And so I propose, unless there's any objection to this, that we complete those frontage right-of-ways along 6th that are a part of phase 2 with phase 1, to complete that and make that a little more whole. And that way we're completing it as we move farther out to the west. I'll just throw that out there. We wouldn't have to do that, but it's an option. And I'm available for any other questions that you have. Of course, we're grateful for everybody's time. I want to thank the community, the neighborhood, especially Melissa Dowley and those that worked with her in putting together a meeting. I didn't know if it was really going to happen or not, but I'm grateful that it did. It's always, from a developer standpoint, it's always nice to see the passion and the transparency from the neighborhood of what they really want. And so I appreciate all the communication that we've had with everybody. I don't think that we've assuaged everybody's fears, or I don't know if I have 100% credibility with all of them yet, but I will continue to strive to do that. I feel like we have made some concessions in their regard. Surprisingly, there were a lot of people that I think we won over to our side in some degrees. Obviously, I don't think we convinced everybody, as we saw tonight. But I urge the council to consider all weigh everything in the balance and consider everything. And again, I appreciate all your time as well.
Thank you.
And again, if there's any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions? Ben?
Maybe in a minute. Can we ask him back?
All right. We may ask you back, Ben, in a minute.
Hi again. I'm Melissa Daly. I'm the Woodruff Neighborhood Council Chair, volunteer position. We do it, I think that's been set up like this because we have city council that does not represent all the areas of the city. Again, we are here to be heard. My job, I think, is to listen to the members of the community and bring that to you as a city council. And it's hard if the city council doesn't listen, and it hurts and it makes it feel like it's useless and frankly makes you want to quit a volunteer position because it's like, what's the point if you're never heard? And I just want to reiterate that this section was made an NR4 just how many years ago was it? Like 5 years ago? So there's a reason the city council voted to make this an NR4 5 years ago. And I think a lot of that reason could stem to the fact that our schools are losing students and our high school is struggling. It is truly, I don't know if it's sad to see what's happened to Logan High over the years. I grew up in Cache County. I went to Skyview.
Logan High was always a big school. It was, you know, the big rival, but it's not anymore. And a lot of it has to do with these small homes. And yes, we love the people. I mean, they're everywhere. We love them. It's not that. It's just the fact that this was made in NR4 specifically 5 years ago for a reason. And I think you should look at that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. And thank you for serving in the neighborhood council.
Charlie Mullen, I live at 60 Thomas Court, which is just north of there. And it's just concerning. I know that they say this might be for retirees, you know, the senior population is growing. But the townhomes, I don't think really are meeting that need, and I doubt, you know, I'm really hesitant to think that would be something that they would choose to live in because, you know, there's all the stairs. Of course, the elderly don't want it. I don't think it would be a place where the professors at the university would want. And so, you know, that seems to be a bit of a high-level wish rather than a reality. And I live right up against Amberfields, which has been interesting as I watched from the beginning to completion. And it's, you know, been a good neighborhood. And I think something more like that fits. This just really stands out as something totally different in the area. And it just doesn't seem to be right. And it seems to be, I mean, I know they could adapt that plan, but I'm really concerned about safety issues like there's no parking for guests, there's no room for children to play. It just is totally out of character. And, you know, even, you know, NR6 probably wouldn't be objected to, but this is just way too far. Way too many places that are supposedly affordable, but then, you know, there's all they're going to have tons of fees for the upkeep besides their, you know, that homeowners would be doing themselves. So I'm not convinced with the arguments. I appreciate that we do need more housing, but NR4 is what's planned. NR6 might be acceptable, but I don't know that condos are really what they're selling them, you know, as being. I just think it will be a lot of, I lived in townhomes. I lived in Yorkshire Village. There was a lot of grass space. There was a lot of playground equipment. There was a community building that could be shared. There was not a lot of parking for guests, but at least there was parking for guests. And, you know, this plan doesn't include any of that, and I just think that's going to really affect who's going to want to live there. And it's not what they're hoping to have. So it might be great for young families, but they're going to be tired of it real soon and move. And, you know, I'm concerned about the schools and all of the safety issues. So
thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
My name's Aaron Zillis. I just live just a little north of this. I understand the need for low-income housing. We've heard both sides of that tonight, and I think it's really important that we do have some low-income housing in the city. And my concern is the location for that, we're not anywhere close to anything, really. The public transportation's terrible around there. I'd have to walk 20 minutes to get to a bus if I wanted to do that. And I mean, these guys are going to have to walk 10 minutes down the road and across a major highway to get to a bus stop. Yeah, I realize that could change, but that's not what I think low income needs. Like, they need proximity to parks, put places for their kids to go easily, do some shopping. Like, there needs to be some proximity to things for this low income housing, not clear out on the outskirts of town where they can't get to anything. And that's something that really concerns me with this. Also, like many people have said, yeah, we might get some people to come into these houses, but as their family grows, they're going to be gone within a year or two. And they're not going to stay in Logan. They're going to go elsewhere if we don't have a place that has big enough houses for their families to grow. And that just concerns me for the future of our city. We see other cities around growing and they seem to have a better plan in place, and I'm not sure we have a solid plan on where we want to see these houses and how we want to develop to that plan. So thank you so much for listening. Have a good night.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to comment on this?
Ernesto, would it be possible for us to ask Ken Hare if he would come up and share the Planning Commission's perspective from their conversation?
Ken?
Sorry, I don't know what you're in charge.
Yeah. Ken, would you be willing to?
We can have Joanne.
Well, I live on 4th West, so I'm not in the neighborhood. But this doesn't look logical to me, that we need to upgrade Logan and not downgrade Logan.
What is your name?
Joanne Bennett, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And, you know, we need to be a family community. That's what we were built for. And this isn't very conducive to families. That's what all the comments equal. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Joanna. So it would be great to hear an opinion from somebody in the Planning Commission. Ken, would you be willing to share some thoughts?
Ken Hare, resident of Logan and chair for the Planning Commission. So part of our discussion and our decision on the way that we voted with that 5-1 vote, I think one point just to make clear, and it's part of the public record of that meeting, was that actually a lot of us kind of feel like this is a good development in a lot of ways, but we also were looking at the fact that the Woodruff neighborhood plan was so new and recent. The density is really close already to the NR4. I mean, I guess we're right between the NR4 and the NR6. So even if, I don't know, it was kind of a hard one. I think we wanted to be able to approve something, but the Planning Commission also didn't have the latitude to do that. We had the option of approving MR9. That was the zoning request that came. And none of us felt that an MR9 rezone was appropriate at the time. I think on the record it was Jess Lucero that was against the denial of the rezone, partly because, and I think from her perspective and the perspective of several of the planning commissioners, is we do see a need for we see a need for the growth. And we talk about housing affordability. I don't think that's really the conversation that needs to be had. You don't get to affordability without availability. We noticed our population is growing quite erratically. The county, and under David Zook's direction, did that housing study. We found that 86% of the growth in Cache County comes from reproduction and not from relocation. So just our own natural growth is causing the need for this. We would like to see a plan that doesn't over-densify the area, because we want to respect that, but we also feel that over the last 5 years, our economy and our housing situation has changed dramatically. We've seen about a 42% increase in housing prices in the last 2.5 years. I think 5 years ago, we had a housing inventory, or houses on the market about 600 houses was normal to see for sale. I think last week there was 308 houses listed for sale in the county. So that goes to show you that we don't have the availability, we don't have the inventory. Pricing is going to continue to go up until we deal with density and availability. So I think from a planning commission standpoint, we are trying to take into consideration the master plan, neighborhood plan, and respect that, but also realize that things have changed in the last 5 years, and we do need to kind of address that and the economic conditions that surround housing in the valley. So while we want to respect that, or the neighborhood in that sense, we also realize that the city has an obligation to the rest of the community as well to provide that housing and revisit our plans and our master plan as we move forward. So do you have any questions for me directly?
So was there any conversation, I wasn't there, was there any conversation about deed restrictions or anything like that?
My understanding is that we cannot request that.
That's true.
It was brought up. We did not go any further with that.
Okay.
Because we can't really dictate it.
Were there any comments made that might sway, that might change my mind, or, you know?
Well, I think if there was something put in place that was reasonable to all the parties involved, it would go a long way. If there was some sort of a compromise. And I think having that meeting with the neighborhood and the developer is one step in that direction, trying to find a middle ground that can work for that. I think we need a mix of housing, and I think most people on the Planning Commission realize that. This, I think Visionary said this is kind of a compromise. I wouldn't say that. I'm not going to weigh in on what a compromise is, but I've seen other developments that they've done where we have high-density condos and townhouses and single-family, which I guess they could propose that. That might have even come to an MR9 density, but that's not what they proposed. I wouldn't say, again, I'm not going to comment on what is a compromise or whether we've met the middle ground yet on this. That's up to the neighborhood and the developer to, I guess, come to that conclusion. But yeah, we did, the discussion of some sort of a deed restriction came up, but we know that we can't control that. It's really up to you guys. You guys have that latitude, whereas the Planning Commission doesn't.
Well, we don't really either.
It's
volunteer. It's volunteer.
We can discuss different things.
It's volunteer.
Did you get any feedback from the school district about this? Did you get anything?
You know what, off the top of my head, I don't
didn't
quite
see anything
remember.
in the minutes.
I don't believe we did.
I haven't heard anything from the school district, so I'm just curious. if That's a problem or not, so.
Well, we find that, that's challenging too, because they're a different entity that controls different things, right? They have to deal with their schools and bond issues and things like that. And a bond issue always costs everybody money.
Yeah. I don't want to assume that because they haven't said anything that they are okay with it. I mean, it's like, I'm not assuming that. So it's like,
But mostly they want our families and ownership. And I think that's what I hear from them every time I hear it.
So on May 11th, so that a design review is coming forward, is it this that's coming forward to you, or is there something more expansive that comes on May 11th?
Well, this is what you guys, if you approve the rezone, I believe this is what would come to us. Right, Bruce?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's-
because of the
yeah,
restriction.
there's no reason to look at it if the reason
Yeah, we
is
won't- we
passed.
obviously won't.
So, I mean, there's nothing more comprehensive that's coming to you.
Oh, there'll be elevations and,
Okay.
you know, roof elevations and differentiations in
Yeah,
siding,
okay.
and you'll have a better visual of what it's gonna look like from a, you know, but you'll see what the buildings are supposed to look like, not the houses, because I would assume unless they're building all the houses, that they would sell the lot and then build the house for you,
But
or
the
something like that.
plating and all of that would be part of that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, comes to,
guest parking, et cetera, all of that.
Yeah,
yeah. just
where the
town-
garbage goes, all that
Really are
stuff.
part, just the townhomes are really part of the design review, because I believe the legislature took away our ability to do design review on single-family detached.
Right.
So just to confirm or clarify, is, your opinion is that the denial was more because of the MR9 classification, the zoning, or because there were townhomes in?
The only thing we were considering at that time was the zone change, because we didn't feel that it was appropriate to go into the design without an approval of a rezone, and we didn't feel that an MR9 rezone was appropriate.
Any other questions for Ken?
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. I'll bring it back to the council.
I have some comments that I've prepared, and I have to do that because it'll get confusing, but I've heard this a number of times. I hope you listen, or you don't listen, or whatever. And I will say that we do listen. I think all of us have read every letter. I think all of us went to at least part of the meeting. I've read all the letters. I've appreciated, first of all, I want to appreciate the neighborhood. It's well organized, and the meeting that I participated, or at least listened at last night, I was instructed by Amy to just listen, and my wife said that'll never happen, but I did. You guys were kind, and you were respectful, and your comments were intelligent, so we do listen. It doesn't mean we always agree. That's the way life is. I appreciate the staff. I know this has been somewhat difficult, and I appreciate the development team. You guys have gone way beyond what I've seen in most places. Mostly you bring in a rectangle and say, we want this kind of a zone. So you've spent a lot of money. I know I used to be the architect that did this. So I know that you've spent a lot of money and time, so I appreciate that. Because it's a different project. This is a unique project. First of all, we seldom see projects of 35 acres. We see 1 or 3 or 5 acres, and you can only do kind of one thing on it. But the number of acres here allows flexibility to do something unique. We don't see projects with this wetland often, or the size of a wetland. We don't see projects, well, this project is between several very nice neighborhoods. I've been in front of all your homes. They're very nice neighborhoods. I would like to live in it. I mean, you know, it's a friendly, good neighborhood. They're traditional. The developer, I appreciate the developer willing to look beyond a standard grid plan. This project is unique, at least in my opinion, because of the mix. Usually it's all townhomes, or all apartments, or all single families. And in this project, I hope you can appreciate it, the mix is not a curse, it can be a blessing. That's what I see. And the fact that it's a mix leads me to where I'm going. Let's see. When I read all the letters, I actually tabulated all the comments. And the most frequent comments I kind of highlighted. And stability was mentioned a number of times. Traffic, 600 south traffic in the crossing, that was one of the high mentions. But the biggest one was hold to the plan. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. So, and there was a number of others, but that's what I heard. We do have a unique traffic situation. When I was there, I didn't see any traffic on Menden Road, but I was there in the middle of the day. So I'm sure that during morning and evening, it's much worse. And I can appreciate that. There is a light on 6, isn't there? Maybe that needs to...
10 west?
Yeah.
6,010 west?
Yeah. All right, so the plan says, what I read in the plan, lower density. That's what it says, the colors and the numbers. And there was a comment in there, somewhere between 4 and 6 units per acre. Okay, kind of that's where we're at. The site is bounded by, on the north and south by 4, and on east and west by 6. So it is kind of a mix in there. I have read 3 or 4 articles, just part of my professional training, on what makes a most successful neighborhood. These are a variety of professional journals. And in each of them, they said the most successful neighborhoods have a mixture of housing. Not all one. I can name some housing projects where they're all bananas. I mean, they're all the one thing. And or you see another project where they're all something else. First of all, it's boring. It doesn't create any transition. You know, they're just ugly. And so I would lean toward the value that I see here is with a mixture of units. It does several things. You're going to get older and younger people. I live in a mixed neighborhood. I have rich and poor. I have old and young. I have big families, little families. And it's a really healthy mix. And I see other places where it's that way. People that need help, get help. People that can offer help, give help. My wife was a service for our religion. You can figure that out. And she spent 3 or 4 years helping people that were indigent, people that were hurting. We think that's a blessing to other people. I give help to the person across the street. He gives help to me because I can't do what he can do. So in this kind of a thing, I see that there's ability to have a starter home, low income, lower income, a rental maybe. I see that you can have a larger home, larger lot for a larger family. You can have places for people like myself and my wife, or empty nesters where we don't have such a big yard, and seniors. I think we made a big mistake in the northwest quadrant by piling all the heavy multifamily concentrated. I think it was wrong. It would have been good to mix that quadrant of the city, with more single-family houses. And to have in some of the other neighborhoods that are single-family, to have some townhomes. It's good to mix with other types of people. So I was sitting with a good friend, a professional, and I said, what would make this whole neighborhood better? I came up with the answer of having a mix, that is the strongest value because your neighborhood will become stronger. You'll have large lots, small lots, townhomes. So in the spirit of making some progress here, I would move that we accept this thing. Obviously, that needs a second and it needs discussion, but at least I'll make the motion. Amen.
Thank you, Tom. Any comments? Any other comments?
Oh, I have lots of comments. I have more questions, so
I'm not sure I'm ready to second that, but I'd love to keep discussing it.
I would like to keep discussing too.
Go ahead.
Hold your motion, Tom, for a while,
Yeah.
till we're ready.
So actually, just can I start, I might come back with more comments, but I do have a couple of questions that I'm not sure who can answer them. But so,
Questions too.
NR6, the lot size is, what's the maximum lot size in an NR6? Because my understanding is part of the switch to MR9 is that allows these smaller lots, but an NR6 would not allow a 4,000 square foot lot, correct?
Correct. 6,000 is the minimum lot size for NR6.
Okay, which is what those yellow lots are, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so doing an NR6 would not allow for that same lot size, for the smaller lot size.
Correct.
Correct.
And a townhome is not allowed in NR6.
Yeah, at all.
Has to be a detached home.
Right. I'm just trying to figure out lot size, so.
And no requirements for open space.
Correct.
And then I'm 99% sure Oakwood, you can get out over at 200, correct?
Yes.
So that's not the only exit. I'm just trying to figure out the traffic. So just like Tom, I was trying to figure out what were some of the concerns and is it possible to address them or not? And that traffic impact is one. So I can see how that could become a real bottleneck in Oakwood coming out. So that's really my thought is like, what are the concerns? Can they be addressed or can they not? And traffic impact is one, as Tom mentioned. That idea of stability. I'm not sure how zoning factors into that. Honoring the neighborhood plan. I think I did have somebody say to me, well, the FLUP says it's NR4, the FLUP just says it's detached residential. It didn't give a density zone, correct? In the FLUP.
Correct.
It's just, okay. So those were my questions. And then Ken answered the other one just about the design approval. I think that was the question is like the guest parking that people have raised, where does the parking go? Is there going to be a playground? All of those things that would be answered in the design approval?
Yes.
Okay. So there's my questions.
Can we invite Ben up? Because I have a bunch of questions for him.
And I have a question that I don't know who will answer as well. So maybe Ben, if you would please come up to the mic. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ben.
My pleasure.
Is there a cell tower plan for this area?
I'm sorry.
A cell tower?
Is there a cell tower?
I was brought up by one of the people that spoke.
I don't know. I'm not an expert in cell tower technology. And I don't know.
But it's
I
not.
understand there are some maps that are publicly available to be able to determine where they are and where they're located. And I don't know if you can determine where the next one's planned to be. I know in my days of commercial development, those were prized, back in those days to give a cell tower on your project. Right. But I don't know much beyond that. I'm sorry.
I would suspect if there's one within 6 blocks, there's probably not another one planned close. But.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have much more to answer that.
We're not planning on putting a cell tower in this project.
You are not planning on it.
No intention at all. Yeah, Visionary is not in the business of developing cell towers.
Okay.
That's right.
I don't think they ever have been. I don't think it's an intent to do that in the future.
Are these properties for rent or for sale?
For sale.
For sale.
There always could be the case, right? I mean, you saw an investor could come in and purchase one of these and they could turn it into a rental. We're not going to prevent that, but everything that we do is for sale.
Yeah.
We don't have any apartments or for rent product.
You've done a bunch of these projects before. I have some friends that are age 60 and 55 that just purchased one, I think, in Providence that you guys have done. And so, do bigger lots equal more stability in your line of work. I mean, my children live on a 6,000 square foot lot. They have a 2,000 square foot house with 4 bedrooms, and they are happy with the size that they've got. They've got 1 child and probably another one coming. So my other friend, who's a pilot for American Airlines, lives on a 6,000 square foot lot. He has a 2,500 square foot house just outside of Dallas, Texas. His house is gorgeous. I think it's a little bit relative. What have you found?
Well, I guess I would rely on just personal experience, maybe recently. As I get to know the residents that have bought into our other communities, one that I'm intimate with, a 95-acre master plan community in Nibley that has 140 condos, a number of townhomes, and some single family. As I get to know the residents that have bought into this project, I don't see any difference in the stability from those that live in a townhome, from those that live in a single family home. Both can be transient in nature, both can be investments. I think it's unfortunate, but I think the way the world has gone with costs and mortgage rates, you know, what we used to think is the home, the baseline for somebody to come in and get a home, I think that has shifted a little bit. And we've got to be a little bit sensitive to the fact that, you know, people that live in townhomes, you know, I made this joke last night in the neighborhood meeting is, and I encourage people to go in and drive through this project in Nibley and get to look at some of the people that live in these townhomes. They got red blood just like us. They're humans just like us. I don't think it's fair to stigmatize townhomes in that particular manner. That's just my personal experience, Mark, you know, in looking at the projects that we've done.
I appreciate the answer. What are houses going for that you're building right now? So obviously they've said $375,000 for a townhome, $425,000 for a starting point for the smaller homes.
And the condos are closer to $300,000. That's kind of ballpark from where they are. I mean, there's always options that people.
If somebody built a 2,500 square foot house on a quarter-acre lot right now, how much would it cost?
You know, I haven't developed that, and so I would imagine
what they put in it.
It would probably be closer to $1 million. I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty large lot. Maybe a quarter acre wouldn't be $1 million, but I think you would easily get $750,000 on a 3-car garage on that size of a lot. It becomes challenging on the affordability front, for sure.
Do you have any
questions? I don't have any more for Ben. I have some for the neighborhood chair of Woodruff.
I have a question that I don't know who would be answering. You mentioned that the improvements to the road on 600 South would be that it would go from 60 to 80 feet wide. I think that's what you said, right, Russ?
Total cross-section, correct.
However, in another meeting yesterday at the neighborhood meeting, I think you mentioned that you were planning on improving it to 102 or 105?
Okay, yeah, so the dedication is 102. And this is according to your road master plan that has this planned out to be 102 all the way down 6th, along with 14. It doesn't make a lot of sense to build that particular road section out today. And so we're deeding an aerial right-of-way and building a collector. If that makes sense. So there's additional land that the city, if needed in the future, you plan to expand and even have a 5-lane, it's a 5-lane road, but the collector would be more like a 3-lane road.
So the initial improvement would be to 80?
Right, yeah.
But then the rest would be park strip, sidewalk.
A lot of landscaping buffer, you know, between the curb and these backyards that is scheduled to be on the HOA's dime.
Okay.
You know, in earlier conversations, the city was a little bit more accepting of maybe maintaining that particular section, but I think since when they looked at the cost of having to do that, they said, no, that needs to be an HOA. And there'll be further discussions with that, but and I really speak to what we've done in Rivergate, which is just a little bit further down the street. And we're trying to mimic that same road cross-section and landscaping. We anticipate a sidewalk, rather a trail, at least an 8-foot trail along that corridor that would meander slightly with some bermage and some landscaping. And so the north side of 6 South will be a beautiful thing, you know, when everything's completed.
Well, there are some requirements for enhanced landscaping when you've backed up houses to an arterial or a collector.
Absolutely, yep.
So I'm aware of that. My question is I've got 2 of them for Ben. How much of this particular project, as you have presented it, how much green space? What's the percentage of green space?
I was just texting my engineer, what's the open space percentage on this project? And he told me, I said, is it 30% at least? And he says, it's greater than 30%. So I don't know the exact percentage. I apologize for not having that. I feel a little bit silly not having that data. But
As you should.
I guess some of the justification might be, there's a lot of things to still flesh out on this, but I don't think we're even close on the open space requirement to meet for the MR9. If we find out that we are, we're going to be beholden to that. You know, it would bring the density down. We would have to eliminate lots to increase the open space to comply with that zone. We're not proposing a deviation from that particular requirement in the zone, the MR9.
Okay, and my second question relates to the question about springs and the 4 lots in the corner.
Yeah,
wait a minute.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So say those 4 lots are not buildable because of the water table or the water situation, whatever. How does that affect your conceptualization? Would you replace those 6,000 square foot lots somewhere else on the project? Or how would you, and does the deed restriction make it so you would have to do that? Or, it's all that sort of mess right there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't very articulate.
No. And sorry to speak over you. I thought you were done with your question. If we determine that there are additional wetlands that prevent us from putting a buildable lot on that particular parcel of ground, then of course there's no way to do it, and we'll have to designate that. We're working with the Army Corps of Engineers to determine the proper delineation for all the wetlands on the project. I had a fairly unique opportunity last week to walk the site with not just the project manager that's been assigned to our project and the project down the street, River Gate, but also his supervisor, Mike Pechtel, and then his boss, Jason Gibbons. And I'm told it's almost like a Sasquatch sighting to see Jason on a job site. And so I thought it was a real opportunity and had a chance to walk the whole site with him. And so we're very engaged on determining what those wetlands are. And I appreciate the comments from the neighborhood that, you know, sometimes they know more about the project than the developer that just purchased it not long ago. And so I'll continue to engage with, I forget the name, but, I'm sorry? Kathleen. To determine if they're already there. I have spoken with the farmer that's been farming this for 40 years. And there was a large wet spot in that northeast corner. And his communication to me was he had a broken hydrant that he left open because he had a corral there and cows, and he thought it was convenient to always have water there for his cows. He has since replaced that hydrant. It doesn't sound like that gets to all of the issues there, but we'll get to the bottom of it, and we have no intention of building on any wetlands. The wetlands that are on the west side are indeed wet, very different from the wetlands that are on Rivergate, where they've been farmed for the last 40 years. These 2 wetlands that you see delineated out, they're wet. They're almost ponded up a little bit, and so you get a lot different fowl that are in there. A lot of ducks, and the one day that I was on there, I saw some sandhill cranes. If you're familiar with those, very majestic bird. I feel like I'm seeing a pterodactyl when I hear them. I have some on some property in Idaho, and it's like they're out of this world. So I think the wetlands will actually add a very nice amenity to this project in their state that they are now. But we'll get to the bottom of those wetlands. Did I answer the question entirely?
Yeah.
The deed restriction caps the number of single-family homes and the number of townhomes. So we can never exceed that cap. there's a cap for each one and a total cap, and so we'll never be able to exceed it. If we're unable to build a couple of 6,000 square foot lots, it would be just left out as open space, and we'd try to turn it into a park. If that ends up being some kind of a wetland in that corner.
Okay.
We have no intention of building on any of our wetlands. You'll notice that the only impacts that we have on the wetlands on this 35 acres are those to improve 6 South and 14th West. We've managed to stay completely away from all the wetlands. In fact, we've got a pretty decent buffer between our townhomes and single-family homes and the existing wetlands. As I know, the City Council is concerned about that, and you guys are working on a critical lands overlay to that same effect. So we're sensitive to that.
So Russ, did we not pass something about wetland delineation needing to be completed prior to?
We did. This was pending, and so the condition was they can't even start that phase. So only a phase would be approved outside of any area indicated on our maps. Our maps do not indicate that east area as being wetland, but it does indicate that west area. So that's why they phased it that way. But going forward, before they even go to the Planning Commission, has to be delineated.
So can I follow up with Jeannie's question about, so if, say, some of those lots cannot be developed, would there be any chance that you would then say, oh, well, we're going to squeeze the size, we're going to squeeze some of these 6,000 so that we have more 4,000 square foot lots so we still have the same number of lots available? Or is that a commitment that those yellow would stay 6?
I'm comfortable making that commitment. I guess under the deed restriction with those caps,
you could make.
We could never exceed those, but we could potentially. I guess the point is could we exchange a 6,000 square foot lot for a 4,800?
Yeah, like if you lose 3 6,000 square foot lots, now all of a sudden you have 1,800 square feet you want to replace. Would you make some of those
under the
6,000
current
smaller?
language? And Craig could correct me if I'm wrong. Under the current language, it looks like that would be a possibility. If it behooves the City Council, I'm more than happy to tighten that up even more and put a cap on the 4,800 square foot lots and a cap on the 6,000 if that's something that you would want to do, which would prevent Visionary from exchanging a 6,000 square foot lot for a 4,800 in the event that a 6,000 square foot lot or 2 were on those.
Yeah, because you could take 2 6,000s and make 3 4,000.
That's a great point. It's a great point.
See, my concern right now is that you have a lot of these questions, and we have a lot of these unknowns, and we have Ben, who's honest and upright and all of that, and I understand that, but he may be promising something that Visionary might not agree to, and so I wonder if, considering that, I probably need to say a little more than that, but I wonder if we need to have those pieces worked out before we talk about the rezone. Because we get to only talk about it, I mean, if it's rezoned with what stands today. What restrictions stand today, what
design stands today.
But this is also a zoning hearing and not a design review.
I know, but it's a zoning with restrictions layered on top of it.
Yeah.
And
I just don't want us to get down into where the dumpster's going to be,
No, I don't want to get there either.
Yeah.
But I will say that, I agree with what you said, Tom, in many ways, that having a variety is an excellent thing. I mean, I live downtown Logan, and there's my house, and the house next to me is a multifamily, and the house next to that is a single family, and then there's a whole bunch of condos, and then there's another single family, and that's just on my side of the block. So I know that you can have all those different types that can coexist and have stability, because we have stable owners of the condos, and we also have renters in the condos, I'm certain. and we have stable homeowners, and we have stable renters in the triplex or the duplex that's next door to me. But I understand too that you live in your community and you value your community, and it's important for it to thrive. And we're very well aware of that. I think one of the challenges is the constraints of zoning. We don't have a way to say, this is really NR4, but because we want to do this, we're going to overlay this piece onto it. We have 4, 6, 9, 12, 20, 30. And each one comes with different parameters. So if it's 4 or 6, we have no open space requirements. Your open space is considered your lot. And you don't have to share it with anybody. If it's MR9, you can have smaller lots that are single family, but you have to have open space for everybody within the confines of the project. And so if you can combine those, that's why the request is for MR9, is because we don't have any other way to create a mix of single-family housing sizes within a single project. The townhouses, I wish we'd find a different name for them, because they're not apartment buildings. They're, the way they've been described to me anyway, is they are, row houses basically, that we call townhouses, but they're attached. There's 4 of them attached one to the other, and that becomes the structure. But I think that, I have some concerns, like Amy said, with, if there are wetlands in that corner and there is a change, I'm not sure that I'm ready to say, go forth and conquer. But I will say this is one of the better projects that I've seen come to us that includes a true mix of housing for different lifestyles, for different times of life, and for different just desires. Because we've read an awful lot of information that millennials, which is the new generation coming up that want to buy houses, they don't want to do yard work. They don't want to have yards. They want to go play. And if that's the case, then you want to have a smaller lot, because what's worse, all of you have lived next to people that don't take care of their yard. All of you have. And I don't know which is worse. Is it worse to have weeds and, a motorhome? I'm sorry, I'm getting off subject, but, in some ways, there can be worse things having a big lot than having someone who really likes just having this little lot and wants to be a part of a neighborhood. So, I don't know where I'm at with that. I'm sorry, I just went on and on. I apologize.
Can I ask you and Tom a question? Like, you were both on the council when this got downzoned.
Yes.
From 6 to 4.
Yes.
Like, what's changed? If you're amenable to doing this, what has changed for you that 6 years ago you were like, yeah, we should make it a lower density, and now obviously the project as proposed is under 6, but what's changed?
There was a general feeling like we were flooding, which we did. The northwest quadrant is flooded with multifamily, and a lot of them are not very good. And I think, as somebody said earlier, there was some reservation of single-family homes. We do want single-family homes. We want people to have the ability to have that home like Mr. Gessel talked about.
The other thing that's changed is the housing crisis, and the state legislature really pushing back on cities in terms of kind of requiring them basically to allow more dense housing. So that is the other thing that's changed since we looked at that.
And I will say that when we talked about it, I know that we were trying in some of the places that we did this, we were trying to replicate the zoning that was already there. So what was already built on the ground.
So the neighboring areas.
Like, if we were, I said there were some areas that we've zoned NR6, and really all the houses that had been built in that area were really NR4, so we should probably make the whole thing be NR4 because it's already built that way. And I know that was part of the discussion. I know that there is part of this area that is NR4, and then part that, so we were trying to create a sort of an NR4 space. But because you don't want to zone a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there and a little bit there, and you leave the middle open, we just put the middle in there as well. My question would be, too, during the course of the Woodruff plan, and I wish that Aaron were here to answer the question, did people actually discuss this area? Or was it just, we don't want to change anything? I don't know.
Good question.
Question for Ben. You said that all of the units will be for sale. And any investor could potentially buy and rent that unit. Sometimes I hear of developments or complexes where they restrict a percentage that have to be owner-occupied. Is there any intention for the HOA to enforce such a thing?
I'm not totally certain. I do have an HOA representative here from the company that might be able to speak better to that. Are there restrictions in our HOAs on regards to rentals?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Can there be?
I've seen them for condominiums. I don't think I've ever seen them for non-condo developments, to be honest with you.
I don't know the answer to that. My guess would be that you could. Maybe your city attorney could speak to that. I don't know.
Get into a little bit of a slippery slope when we start restricting the number of rentals because it will impact low-income housing problems with who can.
That's what we're going to have to do, though.
This would impact on certain groups. So I'd have to look a little bit more into that if that's something we want to explore.
Yeah. And usually the rental restriction is to make people be able to get mortgages. I know, like we've owned condos and it was more that it's harder to get a mortgage if the building's 50% owner occupied or 20% owner occupied. So that was usually more of a financing issue. I've not seen it in a.
That's what I just heard from Reed Scow, is it becomes there is an issue with HUD in trying to do that and restrict only, and I believe there's a financing component to that as well. So that's probably why we haven't gone down that road. I hope that answers the question, Ernesto.
Thank you.
Was there anything else? You mentioned you had another question, but was that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good question.
I'll stay close by in case there are any other questions.
Did you talk to the school district at all? Did you talk to the superintendent?
I didn't. There was a school board representative that was here during the planning commission. I had some words with him after the meeting, and I believe he was at the neighborhood meeting last night as well. So there was somebody from there, but I didn't speak with anybody else.
Okay. Is your slightly smaller density plan still on the table? That I know you've been working on, but.
Yeah, there are a lot of cons in taking away some of that open space. I guess anything's still on the table, but when I look at this one compared to any other alternative, and it's not just because this one has a few more townhomes. I think the layout is very conducive. I think you take out one of these blocks of townhomes, you've lost a lot of open space. You've lost a pretty large view corridor, trails, and like I said earlier, I believe that I think this one, weighing everything in the balance, does give you that middle of the road feel. It's in between those 6s and the 4s. It gives you a nice mix. I guess the only other thing that would be different, but from this plan and from the other master plan communities that I've done, is there's a condo component. But we were sensitive to the fact that I don't know if that would fit in this neighborhood presently. But I am aware that this particular part of the city is growing. And you know, when you build 14th West out all the way up to SR's 30 and all the way south, and you widen 6th,
It's going to change.
I would imagine you're going to have additional development in this surrounding location. It'll continue to change, you know, for better or for worse. I feel like we're kind of on the forefront of that and taking a lot of the heat for that particular change. But unfortunately, I think you're going to see more. These other open spaces to the north and to the west, this city's growing. This is now on the edge of the city, but in a few short years, this won't necessarily be the edge. You know, 10th as a bypass to Main Street, I look at that as some major infrastructure through there, a lot of traffic through there, and the only thing you don't have is a little more commercial along this particular neck of the woods, which probably is in your plan to do. But
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to also echo some of the comments that Sean Mill made earlier. When I got married, I lived in a townhome for almost 9 years, and that's where we raised, the early childhood of our kids. And we all have our values, all come with cultural values and beliefs that we all grow up with. But I appreciate your comment on that. Having a mix of housing allows for our children to interact with other children that maybe they wouldn't be able to interact with. My children never interacted with anybody else besides the children at the townhome. So, yeah, and owning that townhome is the only thing that allowed us to eventually buy a detached home. So it was a great starting point for us.
And you've stayed in Logan.
And I've stayed in Logan, yeah.
Upgraded.
I'll just make one comment. My daughter, I said this last night to some of the people. My daughter lives in a townhome. She lived in a single-family home with a quarter-acre lot. She's divorced with 2 kids, and one has some disability. It was just driving her nuts. And so when townhomes became available in her general vicinity, she said, "Dad, I want to move into that." And she didn't want to cut the grass. She doesn't want to shovel the snow because physically she really can't do it. And so this gives her, and it's near a park, and it's near the schools, and it's near the church, and it's near the Macy's. So it works out. I don't see she's moving up or moving down. She likes it. And her neighbors are professionals. They just like to have that simplified life. So sometimes we think of the townhouses as those people. And we really need to get away with that. There's those people in all of our homes.
So one concern that I have that was raised by the neighborhood too is this thought though of the time and effort that's been put into a neighborhood plan and honoring that. And I know we're in the midst of kicking off the Wilson plan and so how do we answer that idea of groups of individuals come together, they weigh in, they engage, and then yet they feel that effort may have not been worth it. And so that, I don't know if that's a question for you and Mike, Russ, is how do we make sure that process moving forward, that people don't get discouraged, right? Because if I was in Wilson right now and I heard this conversation, I might go, well, why should I show up at a meeting to weigh in if City Council in 2 years is just going to completely change their mind on it? I mean, obviously recognizing that conditions and things change, but I just think we need to be a little bit sensitive to that. And I think that was why community development recommended denial at the beginning was because of the existence of, partially because of the existence of that plan. So I think as a council, we need to kind of consider that and think about that, like what the messaging
Absolutely.
of engaging our neighborhoods. And like people are saying, like, I don't feel like you're listening to me, which I would feel listened to if I put in effort and then 2 years later it was like, things have changed, so where that doesn't matter anymore. So that to me is a really big concern with this rezone. Even though I think the project makes sense, I would just feel like we need to be really sensitive to that, because that doesn't seem to be a concern that we've really been able to talk about and address. And then that, again, like the traffic impact is something too. I know it's only going to get busier there, but that to me is really, it's weighing on me. That's what's weighing on me.
Can I say how I justified it? Because I think that is a legitimate issue, is that I saw the neighborhood plan or flip, and it really talks, in my opinion, about density. It talks about being lower density, which this is between 4 and 6 units. So it is of a lower density. The unique thing here, why it went to 9, is to get a different product type in here. That was what was needed. The other comment I wanted to make is, I think the neighborhood has already influenced this plan before they even spoke to it, because you can see that the developers have insulated the townhomes. I doubt if people can really see the townhomes. These can be two-story homes. So two-story homes will block, but nobody will see townhomes.
Because the townhomes are only 2-story as well.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So I think there's been an influence and a major effort by the designers, planners, to try to insulate and protect the neighborhood. And within all of these things, nobody likes change. Nobody likes change. We all want to keep it the way Ozzie and Harriet always had it. We always want to have the chicken crowing next door, the rooster, I guess, is crowing next door. I don't take biology, I don't know this. But the point is, we like it the way we grew up. And there's a little bit of nostalgia. And we like our homes. We like the people next to us because we trust them. We don't like new people moving in because we don't know what they're like. And so there's always this fear. I've seen this for my whole professional career. Nobody likes change. And well, I guess I'll say, I think that the developer has tried to make it a good project and try to be sensitive also to the neighborhood. Hey.
May I say something?
No.
It's
up to Ernesto.
I was just
It's up to
I'll give you 1 minute if you want to comment.
All I want to say is I don't think anybody's saying those people. And also, I was divorced in 1979. When I purchased my home down there, it was in the 80s. I was a single parent. Nobody cared. I bought the home because it was a repo because of the water issues that we were talking about. I had to put a leach drain around it. Anyway, nobody's saying those people. I think what they're saying is that many people. They're not saying those people because I'm one of those people. I was a single mother forever. And they accepted me. Everybody in Woodruff accepted me. So it's not those people. And I just keep hearing that over and over again. And I'm one of those people. And so it's not those people.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I don't mean to be rude.
No. Thanks, Catherine.
I like those people.
The public comments time is over, so thank you, everyone. We really, truly appreciate everybody's comments. This is not an easy decision. I think a lot of us took time yesterday to also come to the neighborhood meeting to listen to your concerns. And we truly appreciate everybody's input. I think if there was a magic wand to make things happen out of magic, I think we would give everybody what they wanted, but there's limited space. And as that report from the task force and the county council reported, denser housing can help us achieve many things, some of the things that you yourself prioritize, like open space. I mean, last fall we passed the open space bond. This actually helps us achieve some of those things, because if we're able to densify certain areas, then we have more open space that we can classify or preserve to stay open. So there are many things about this project that I think are very positive. Any other comments that?
Thank you.
It's been moved. Do you want to proceed with a vote, or would you like to continue this?
My question still stands regarding the water on the corner. I would like a little more clarification on, what the lot size composition would be if they can't build on those, or how that would change.
I thought he answered that.
Well, it would
require a change in the deed restriction that was submitted.
Yeah, it would require a change in the deed restriction. And like I said, if we pass it today, it sits with the deed restriction as it's written today.
If he's farming it, there's no way it's classified as wetlands right now, right?
I don't know if he's farming it or not. I have no idea. It was a cow pasture. It'll grow really good vegetables.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Correct.
The deed restriction is not in the finalized form now with the change that we discussed, so that needs to be finalized and signed off on by both parties. So we could do that tonight, but I'm more comfortable getting that language hammered out in the meantime and continuing.
All right. So it sounds like we need to continue, but before we...
If you're inclined to go...
I'd like to get some input from the school district too, because that's still a question that has not been answered for me, so.
So are there things that we need to get from community development and/or from the developer? Are the questions that we need answered? Who needs to answer them?
I think the deed restriction is something that's the developer and Craig, as far as getting that in place, and if 2 weeks is reasonable for that, that would be one thing. But, if we're continuing
And
it,
get those other questions.
what information would change between now and in 2 weeks? That's,
Pardon me?
what information do you need that would enable you to make a decision
I
in
want
2
a
weeks?
firm deed restriction that articulates the questions that you raised.
Yeah.
And that will determine how you vote.
Yeah, it will determine what density, the overall density of the project.
Able to do.
So Gene, just so I'm clear, you'd like to know the minimum number of 6,000 square foot lots that are going to be in this?
What Ben said was he was willing to limit the number of 6,000s and the number of 4,800?
Yeah.
Is it 4,800? Okay.
Correct. Yeah, and I'm authorized to make concessions tonight. You notice my name was on the application along with Visionary Homes. And so if there is business that we can conduct here tonight, I think it behooves us to make a resolution on this now. I feel like there's been a lot of discussion on this between all parties. The changes that have been requested by your city attorney are minor, simple, and we acquiesce. And I have no problems with putting an additional limitation, another cap, if you will, Craig, that caps those 6,000 and caps the 4,800 so we can't interchange those two. It seems to me like that would resolve it, and there really isn't anything more to discuss.
Because you'd have caps on all three types of housing.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have had the deed description for a number of times, a number of days here, and we've gone back and forth on a couple of minor things, but this one change that was requested tonight, I don't see it as being any kind of trouble for this being a successful project. In addition, we're...
Comments or questions that need answered?
I'm still comfortable with moving ahead. I don't see jots and tittles kind of thing that we're going to do. I don't see that they can make a huge conceptual change or numerical change if there's some water flowing in one of those lots, it just becomes not a buildable lot.
Yeah, you guys have a preliminary plat application in front of you as well. You haven't seen it yet because Planning Commission deferred that, but we've put all the plats together. This is a preliminary plat that's got multiple pages on it. And whatever changes need to be made to conform to the zone, that's always going to be the case. It's hard to nail down every question today. I feel like we've given more than I've ever given on rezone requests, and more than happy to discuss it anymore, but I think to put it off on another time frame would just frankly be a waste of a lot of our time. We're going to come back to the same conclusion we would today. That's my opinion. Of course, it's in your prerogative to do
Thank you, Ben.
whatever you think is best.
Thank you. Are there questions that need answered before we can move forward?
So I guess what I'm hearing is that whatever gets passed could include that we can amend the deed restriction tonight to identify those things. I guess that's my...
Now, the deed restriction is offered before the council makes a resolution or makes a decision on the ordinance to rezone. And where we don't have a finalized one, we trust the developer and everything, but I feel more comfortable, there's been enough discussion that I feel more comfortable hammering out the language before a decision is made.
I'd be willing to withdraw the motion and make a motion to continue this for 2 weeks for the purpose of hammering out the
Development version,
yeah.
with or without a public hearing?
I don't think we need another public hearing.
Okay. I would second that.
Any other comments before I call vote? It's been moved and seconded to continue this item for 2 weeks to allow for modifying the deed restriction
And finalizing it.
and finalizing it by the developer to be submitted to our attorney and work out those details. Is 2 weeks enough to do that? Are there any other questions that need answered by the council? All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. We will continue this for May 16th. Thank you, everyone, for coming and sharing with us your thoughts and your concerns. We really value your input. Thank you for staying with us for the time that we spent here. Next in our agenda.
Could you say that to the public, to the neighborhood, they can still write letters?
Absolutely.
So just a clarification, you can still write emails or call us, text us. And just as a reminder, we have continued the vote for this rezone, not the public hearing part of it. So thank you, everyone. Next in our action items, we have a public hearing for ordinance 23-15.
Thank you. For the record, Darren Parr, city engineer.
Oh, you didn't let Paul come? Come on.
He is taking care of some health issues right now, so he asked me to step in for him today. Dang it.
Well, I hope they're not serious.
No. Okay. Serious. This is really was workshopped with Paul at the last council meeting. It's an abandonment of a public utility easement located between two existing subdivided properties. The idea is that the property owner who owns both properties on either side of the PUE is wanting to change that alignment, and so his request is to abandon that PUE. I received a fair number of calls on this, which I was surprised with. There's a lot of people that are interested in that neighborhood. There are things going on, but all of them were just interested calls, and nobody had any significant comments. I even talked to several of the utility companies, just helping them understand what we were proposing to do, and they were all very accommodating in terms of not having any comments. I don't have much more to present unless you have further questions.
I want to make sure that we have enough frontage.
Yeah, that was the question that came up.
And I apologize because Paul told me I need to talk to you about frontage. Paul did specifically have a conversation with Russ, and I think he may have left.
No, he's out there talking.
He's out there talking.
Yeah.
Regarding that frontage, and he confirmed again that that frontage is appropriate and
It's adequate?
Yes, adequate for, it meets our standards, let's put it that way.
Okay, because it looked really small.
Yeah.
So, I may ask, can I ask him? Can we?
Maybe Mike.
Hey Kurt, could you ask Russ if he'd come in here and?
That frontage question got answered, Mike?
Yeah, that frontage question.
What's the minimum frontage?
Right there.
And again, this isn't part of the review process, but I know you're kind of interested in that.
Russ?
Yes.
We're going to go all out of order here.
Put you on the spot.
I was concerned when we were going to move that there wasn't enough frontage left on that lot on the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, so our code allows latitude when you have a flag lot or a cul-de-sac, and we measure width from the midpoint of the lot. So that's why you have like a pie-shaped lot on a cul-de-sac.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So there's allowances there. If it's a straight block, then the lot width applies right out on the street, but not on a cul-de-sac or a flag lot or a hammerhead or something like that.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Tom's trying to convince me that I should buy that lot and build on it.
Looks like a neat lot.
Not really
Really
nice.
nice neighborhood.
It is a nice neighborhood.
What they're trying to accomplish, see this area here, this is flatter. These areas that are hatched are steep slopes. So they're trying to create flatter lots so they don't have to build on a steep slope. I think we can all appreciate that, considering some of the things that happened in Draper recently.
Yes.
That little lot has,
What happened in Draper?
the lot with the narrow entrance has a lot less sidewalk to shovel.
But a lot more driveway.
A lot more driveway, yes, a lot more driveway. It'll be heated, they won't have to worry about cleaning.
Yeah.
Oh, jeepers.
Heated driveway, more electricity.
Any other comments or questions before we open it to public comments? This is a public hearing. If you'd like to comment on this specific item on our agenda, please come up to the mic and state your name.
Where'd everybody go?
Bring it back to the council.
I move we approve ordinance 23-15.
Second.
Being moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Resolution, ordinance 23-15 passes. Thank you.
Wow, Rich, you've got almost 3 hours without talking.
Moving right along.
Longest I've ever gone.
I know, I'm like in shock. I didn't think I could have peeked from you.
It was mostly Amy and
Except for when I asked what was going to be in the budget hearings. That was like, wow.
It was amazing. I was mostly asleep during those 2 hours.
She said that out loud, didn't you?
Next in our agenda.
Just like I am when we do an audit committee.
It's been a long meeting.
Next in our agenda. Do we need a break?
Let's move it, let's move
We
along.
can keep going.
Let's keep
but this
going.
meeting
need to
is
stretch.
spiraling out of control.
We need to stretch. Okay.
Security, please escort.
Next is our public hearing for resolution 23-13. Rich, would you like to do a quick review of that?
There are two grants and a really large one. The first is a request for appropriate $2,808 for U.S. Department of Justice reimbursements for police department. Request to appropriate $411 toward additional funding for the 911 fund grant. And lastly is request to appropriate $8,021,000 of additional funds toward the purchase of power in our electric fund. This is in addition to the $6.4 million we appropriated earlier in the year because power costs are huge. And Mark Montgomery is here and he really wants to speak to us.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
That, obviously, it's a huge amount of money, or at least seems to be. Is, if you don't need it, does that just go back into the pool?
And this is about, by our estimations, and everything can change when we hit July or June, but about $1 million more than what we believe we actually need. And that just gives us flexibility because we're trying to stay within the budget that council has passed. So, but this is very difficult to project how much power costs.
How does this go with
Crystal ball and rabbits.
electric rates then? We put this into the budget to buy it, to pay for it. And then the customers, the citizens, they pay for it with rate increases? Or is this?
So the surcharge is calculated off of the original adopted budget. These variances just make it legal for us to go out and buy power until the end of the year.
And we are doing a rate study, which will then take into account what our actual rate needs to be, so we hopefully don't have to continue using surcharges. That's our backstop.
Yeah, all right, thank
This
you.
is a significant increase. It's, roughly 50% increase in purchase power over this past year. So that's a significant number. But we'll see what it actually turns out to be once we get to the end. But
I went to the UAMPS meeting, and that's what they're saying, more.
yeah.
Because of climate, because of all kinds of things.
It is a very difficult purchase power market, and I expect it to get more difficult as what has been a historically reliable, although very dirty, power source is retired over time without a significant and reliable source to replace it with. We're on the verge, but you can't turn on your light with what's on the verge. You turn it on with what
you have.
And lots of things will be part of that solution, but that's
Okay.
All right. Comments, questions before I open it up for public comment? This is a public hearing. If you'd like to comment on Resolution 23-13, please come up to the mic and state your name. Bring it back to the council.
I would move acceptance of Resolution 23-13.
I'll second.
Let Jeannie
I think I heard Tom first.
Okay.
Oh, dang it.
It won't matter.
Reach out, Jeannie. Reach out.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Resolution 23-13 passes. Next, our workshop items. First up, we have Resolution 23-12. Our CDBG
Good to see you, Mark
annual
Montgomery.
action plan presented by
Thanks
Amanda.
for sitting through that, Mark.
Bye, Mark. Hey, I missed you at the meeting down there.
And look, Amanda's had to sit here
Go,
through
Amanda.
all these speakers, bless her heart.
I'm still awake, barely.
Please enlighten us.
We're really awake.
Pending recommendation.
Amanda, we should have a food truck outside.
I should have ordered dinner. Okay, I am presenting the funding recommendation for the CDBG 2023 Annual Action Plan. The estimated funding for project year 2023 is $567,134. The steering committee is recommending the funding of 4 infrastructure projects totaling $398,708. And I will go through each of these projects on the next slides. The Lundstrom Park project is recommended to be a receiver project that will be funded up to $111,000 with any leftover funds from completed projects or any amount received from HUD over the funding estimate. The 100 North 500 East project is also recommended as a receiver project for any additional funds up to a total project funding of $200,000. It is also being recommended that $55,000 go to Bragg's Emergency Home Repair Program.
And that is just for Logan residents, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And $113,426 go to the CDBG administration and towards the 2024 through 2028 con plan.
First infrastructure project is the First West 200 South pedestrian crossing. It is requesting $98,433 to construct 2 bull outs on each corner of the intersection, shortening both crosswalks across First West. There will also be 2 pedestrian-activated flashing crossing beacon signs installed for both crosswalks to notify motorists.
And that is right across from the rec center
From the rec
and close
center.
to the high school.
Yes. Next is the 600 South Main sidewalk. Project is requesting $134,145 to install a new multi-use trail along 600 South. It will connect the West Side Trail with the proposed tunnel under Main Street. The 500 West Street Improvements Project is requesting $37,836 to install the missing sidewalk, curb and gutter, asphalt, and landscaping to complete the streetscape along 500 West. And this project will also help correct some existing drainage issues. The First North 550 sidewalk project is requesting $128,292 to install a new sidewalk, curb and gutter, and 9 ADA ramps along the north side of 100 North from 500 East to 805 East. And again, this is a recommended receiver project for any excess funds up to a total project funding of $200,000. And then the Lundstrom Park sidewalk, it will use reallocated funding up to $111,230 to install a new 10-foot wide multi-use trail along 1350 North and 1700 East that will enhance the access and mobility improvements around the park.
So that's the blue outline, right? The blue and pink.
Yeah, it's red, kind of with a blue highlight.
Okay. And the orange is what was done last year?
Or
2
no,
years
the
ago?
orange is just,
Because wasn't that?
it's either a
Oh,
trail
sorry, just
or,
a trail. Okay, good.
I think it's a trail.
Well, there's the, I think that sidewalk was put in. That was a project.
And then the Bragg Emergency Home Repair Program is requesting $55,000 to provide eligible LMI households up to $4,500 for minor home repairs that, if neglected, would pose a potential health and safety threat.
What is $500 program delivery?
Per household. It's for the admin costs for each household. So it's $5,000 essentially.
I thought we couldn't pay for people. Anyway, never mind. I'll talk about that later.
For projects to repair water, sewer, roof, and electric. It will benefit approximately 11 families. And then the 2023 program admin and planning, $85,070 for CDBG administration, $28,356 for the 2024 through 2028 con plan.
I like your graphic.
That's it.
That's a good one.
But it has to be for a certain time period. It can't be like ongoing.
Thank you, Amanda.
So Jeannie, your question is whether Bragg can charge an administrative management component to that?
Yeah. I don't know if they can or not. I don't know if that's, I don't remember talking about that part.
I missed that meeting, so.
I think because it's for a specific, to operate the specific activity
of the program. So it's not for a specific person, but the management and the administration of the program.
Yeah, I just didn't remember talking about that. So it came as a surprise to me.
That 500 and something thousand, was that the still estimate or is that a final number?
It's not final yet.
Okay.
We haven't got the actual contract or agreement,
Yeah.
the amount.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Next up, we have Resolution 23-15 by Mike.
Greetings.
Hi, how are you?
It's just living the dream. Yeah. 3.5 hours is awesome. Bring it on.
You've been sitting back there having a good time, I know.
Goofing off. Okay, so this is a request to amend the project year 2019 annual action plan, so it's CDBG related. If you recall, we had a pandemic a few years ago, 3 years ago.
We did?
I know, amazing, isn't it? We all survived.
Totally forgot about that.
And not to belittle, there are people that did suffer from that. So as part of that, the pandemic response, we got 2 allotments from HUD that our community used to help kind of offset or respond to COVID. So we got a total of $507,761. Of that, we have spent just a little over $300,000, so $297,597. We had 6 years from the time we got that, so it's May 28th of 2020 to spend that. We still have to spend it on things that relate to preventing, preparing, and responding to COVID. So it's a little challenging in terms of what we can spend it on. So we've got about $210,000 left. What we're proposing to do is to reauthorize or reallocate, what the right term is, the remaining funds to go towards trail improvement projects. And by doing that, one of the projects that we want to fund through Russ Akina's group is to improve 18th South, the trail that connects from 18th South up to basically the river trail that goes to Trapper or 10th West. And what they want to do is widen that out just to allow for more, basically go to a multi-use or multi-purpose type of trail. So right now it functions more of a sidewalk. The idea is to give more people more room to recreate there. And that's one of the uses that was fitted in this category of funding. So happy to answer your questions.
So because it's outdoor related, people are separated and away from a potential contagious spread, that qualifies to use the COVID funds.
Right, and it's got to be in a low, moderate-income neighborhood. It's got to serve that clientele. There's 3 criteria basically: the cost eligible, and when you use these funds specifically for a public facility, and again, it gets back to those 3 things related to COVID. It needs those. To tie back to coronavirus, like you said, we're widening out, give people room to spread out, and then also it meets a national objective under the Community Home Block Grant Program, which is low, moderate income. This was noticed. We haven't had any comments or feedback. The notification period ends at your next public hearing. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
thank you.
Our last workshop item, Rich.
So request to appropriate $11,451 from the sale of a fire vehicle back toward replacement rolling stock in the fire department. It was a ATV that was no longer used. We want to purchase electric bikes that will fulfill that purpose.
I have no questions.
All right.
What? No questions?
Thank you, Rich.
Briefest presentation we had tonight.
Sorry?
Any other considerations?
Yes. I figured out how much the difference would be for a 30-year mortgage at 6 and 7% for a $375,000 mortgage compared to a $425,000. I was waiting for Rich to do it, but he was delinquent, so
He was sleeping.
it's approximately $300 to $400 per month.
Wow.
So that is significant.
It's significant. It's not.
Between the townhome
It's
and
not a
the
little
small
bit.
home.
No,
Okay.
no. For someone, $300 to $400 a month is how, like groceries.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
that's.
was gonna say,
it's
on
not.
food.
It's not a tiny
lights.
difference. Yeah, that's over 30 years, but at interest rates, I calculate off of 6 because that's kind of like average right now. So, yeah.
And what's also interesting is the amount that mortgages have increased simply because of rates. And I don't remember the exact mortgage amount, but I believe it was 400,000, 450,000, just because the interest rates have increased $1,000 a month.
$100 a month, yeah.
Just because of the interest rates going from 3% now to.
Well, it's the
6%.
perfect storm. You had the increase in prices, and then, because of And then you had COVID, and then you had the economy kind of firing up, and then you got to cool it down, and so you got the perfect storm.
And all the comments are correct. None of those houses are affordable right now. They're not. And it's like, but there's nothing out there that's cheaper. So it's just like.
They may be less expensive, but they're not affordable.
I mean, I wouldn't buy a townhome for $375,000. It's like, there's no way.
If you had a choice between that and the 450,000.
King David, you still have to do the RDA.
You got one other item.
No lunches.
She's going to RDA.
And
No lunches for a month for you.
we start our redevelopment agency.
Reconvene as the redevelopment agency.
Go for it.
All right, here we go. Fire away and finish, right? Okay, so tonight we're talking about phase 2 of the Mill Creek Apartment Project
Speaking of
and the
affordability.
associated request that's being presented to the RDA. So just to reorient all of ourselves.
Gosh, I can't
a
believe
little
that's
bit
what
of
it used to look like.
V1. That is the former V1 or even Grizzly Station, the vacated gas station convenience store. Mill Creek Phase 1 was built at this site, which you're all familiar with by now, I'm sure, at the corner of 100 South.
Come on, you need a photo.
We got one in our packet. We have one in our packet.
So, well, there's a rendering, not a photo.
Okay.
It was built.
A little bit different.
Next best thing, right? Not a live photo. So that was built and completed about a year ago, I believe. The lease up's been very successful. When that project, well, first of all, 75 units in that phase, a lot of amenities, structured parking. When that project was envisioned originally, the developer had planned on a phase 2. Of course, that had some complications. You had the ruins of the old Thatcher Mill existing there that had burned years ago. There was the canal that passed along First South that required relocation for that site to be buildable. Here is a site plan that shows actually both phases. So over in the far left, that white box is the existing phase 1 of Mill Creek. The long rectangular box to the right of that runs along 100 South is proposed phase 2. So obviously, you know, the canal relocation was a big part of that. If you look at the far right of that image where you see the blue shade, that's the canal that came into the property. The developer has already redirected that water down the hillside to the east part of the proposed phase 2 building, and then it continues on westward and eventually under 100 West. So another diversion of that water will occur as part of phase 2 on the frontage of 100 South. So right in front of this proposed building will be a decorative stream, if you want to call it that. Not
I think
Like the ones from Park Stream?
Yeah.
I think all streams are
It's like
decorative.
City Creek. Well, it's like the water flows through City Creek.
It'll be a moving puddle.
It's more than just the water, it's what it symbolizes. So the developer, you know, really going through the whole process of eliminating the mill ruins, wanted to pay tribute, if you will, memorialize the history behind its site. So they're going to capture some of that history. So as part of this project, along that sidewalk where we'll have pedestrians walking, they'll incorporate a number of things, including the water feature, the decorative water feature, an interpretive wall.
We should let everybody pan for gold or something. That's what that was like.
We're not on mascot.
That's what it was.
We should put that in their deed restriction.
These are so cynical.
And silly already.
So
It's a punchy crowd up
they're
there.
taking some of the stones from the old mill and incorporating them.
Yeah, so that's what you see in the background there. They'll have some openings to be reminiscent of what you saw there. They even got some old artifacts like the flywheel that they'll put in there. So it should be a really neat addition.
Yeah, I think it'd be great, actually.
And really, these two elements, the historic recreation, I think the cost of this is about $150,000. The canal relocation, where they thought that would be about $150,000, ran them about $487,000.
Yeah, I could figure that one out.
Yeah,
A
that
little
was very
higher
high.
than usual, yeah.
So those are really driving this request. The RDA did incentivize or assist phase one with $500,000 out of the Affordable Housing Fund. The request here tonight is for $100,000 for phase two, which would be sourced out of the Affordable Housing Fund that the RDA has. And keep in mind that while this is market rate housing, Utah state statute does allow for affordable housing funds to be used for market rate housing in a project area like the downtown RDA, where a blight finding or economic development has been identified. So it's all, per the original intent of RDA law.
Are they going to park under that? Do you know?
I think most of the parking's in phase one. It seems like some of it does.
Oh, okay.
I don't think they park under that.
I think he did.
Well, they could, there's a connection point there.
He did all of his parking.
Or maybe some of it does, I can't remember.
I don't see how you can park everything into the phase one.
So thank you for starting with the initial photo, that we remember this was a blighted area, because I think it's easy to forget what this looked like. For that finding of blight, like when you look at those original pictures, I think that was very helpful. So thanks for starting with that. 'Cause otherwise I look at this and I'm like, why are we giving funding to a project that is not blighted? But the original site was clearly.
Yeah, and keep in mind that the state statute, it doesn't have to be site specific per se. It's just anywhere in the downtown RDA, you have that ability to use affordable housing funds for a market rate project, because the intent is to incorporate housing into the downtown as a key element of revitalizing and
Bringing the entire boat up,
yeah,
so to
there you
speak.
go. So that's a rendering of what it will look like with phase two added on to phase one. So that's a view looking to the southwest down 100 South.
It's going to be a nice addition.
It really is. It's a beautiful project.
To the downtown.
So again, the proposal is $100,000. I've explained that. The Economic Development Committees looked at this and approved it, or not approved it, but recommended the project for your approval. And so with that, that's what I have.
And we interrupted you with all the questions.
Thank you. With all the giggling.
So when Mill Creek was first proposed, everybody was concerned about traffic on First West and students crossing the road. Has that been a problem?
No. I cross every day, but
75 units. I haven't seen anybody get run over there yet.
no, it's been very good. And we still left stings down there for crosswalk enforcement, and we've not seen anything radically different.
I haven't noticed anything on First West. Like,
Well,
there's a huge amount of traffic coming off of that.
But you think about First West is going to change once they open the bridge.
Yeah.
The traffic flow is going to change.
That's going to change it more than this development.
Right, but we're also doing that lighted crosswalk at the bottom of that sort of, down there so that people can cross more safely at Second South.
And
My
then
point-
a
my
traffic
point-
light at 300.
Yeah, my point is that 600, that development is going to affect it less than us turning that into a bigger road. But different conversations, so.
Yep. All right, any last hearings to
The RDA.
adjourn? Good job. Thank you, everyone.
Craig, have you got